Welcome to my good bad brain. I'm a normal person, so I'm insane. I've got depression and ADHD, but I'm doing better since I medicated me. I'm still not always sure whether I exist or what being a person even really is, but I figured out a long time ago that being alive is beautiful.
All right, hi, welcome to the second episode of My Good Bad Brain, which I am dropping the first day. I wanted to put a couple out at once just to get this ball rolling. We'll do one a week after this. As usual, businessy stuff first. Go to patreon.com/mygoodbadbrain if you like this. Leave me a review, blah, 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 blah. You've listened to podcasts before. You know how the internet works. You know how support on the internet works. Woo! This episode, this was awesome. I loved this one, and I wanted to put it out first. Miles Thompson is one of my best friends. He's my best fucking friend, man. I always feel weird saying that because it feels like it's like saying your favorite movies. If someone's like, what are your top 10 favorite movies? And you're like, well, I don't want to say this one in front of this one because this one, and that's like saying, like, they're all my favorite. You know what I mean? So if you have best friend, if you have a category of best friend, it's like, which of your brothers is your best friend? It's like, well, they're my fucking brothers, man. I love them. Miles is very, very much inner circle best friend shit with me. And I'm lucky. And so Miles is, well, let's do some of the nonsense, the bio kind of thing, right? Like Miles is a chef. Okay, he's nominated for a James Beard Award right now, which is like an Academy Award for chefs. That's insane. And he just turned 30. He was last year, I think, 30. One of the rising star in the country. They called him an Esquire. He's won a bunch of awards. He's just a genius chef. And if you Google Miles Thompson, you'll find reviews and video of his food. I think some video, definitely some pictures of his food. You can eat his food at this restaurant called Michael's in Santa Monica right now. It's wonderful. But I met Miles acting in a terrible straight to kind of DVD movie. I don't know where you can see it now. I'd rather you didn't. No, you can. It's funny. It was called Foreign Exchange. It's terrible. And it was very bizarre that Miles was on this movie. I think he got involved because a friend was involved. Because Miles is a legit good actor. He was in a movie called You, Me, and Everyone We Know or something like that. A Miranda July movie when he was a kid. And after that, he studied classical guitar and then he became the chef. When he decided he didn't like the consistency of acting. He'll talk about it, I think, a little bit in here. Who does that? Who's that genius? Like that you're in indie darling, like, you know, critically acclaimed movies when you're a kid. You decide you don't do it. You become a college level classical guitarist, very good guitar player. Leave it behind. You're done with it. Go do food, and before you're 30, you're nominated for a James fucking Beard Award. I mean, he's a genius. He just is. He's a weird genius. And I think a question that comes up talking to this weird genius, who I am quite enamored of, that I love very deeply, is I think a question arises a little bit about high-powered brains, genius brains. I think about like cars, you know, like Ferraris. If you're a race car, if you're a Ferrari, you can't drive that every day. You have problems, you know, like you're going to have problems. You're going to hit bumps in the road and the car won't deal with them quite as well necessarily as a Honda Civic would. But when that thing needs to rip and roar, god damn, I'd rather be in the Ferrari than the Honda Civic, you know. You can move in that thing and you can do things that you just can't do in a Honda Civic. But sometimes you really wish you had the reliability of the Honda Civic. And I think for a lot of people out there who have this experience of feeling like this experience with their brain, they know their brain's capable of these amazing things, but then there's these aspects of it like, well, what good is all that horsepower if I don't know, like there's something wrong with the wiring that gets the accelerator that got, you know, knocked loose last time you took it out for a spin or whatever. You get the metaphor. I don't know about car stuff that much. And so with Miles, he was so open with me about real struggles he's gone through and real struggles that he still has to maintain. Being diagnosed bipolar and having some intense experiences. He's been held in overnight on a 72-hour hold. I think it's called a 5150. He talks about that. And I got to know some more things about my friend I've known for more than a decade, which was illuminating and wonderful and really generous of him to share, because I think his story is so inspiring. I couldn't pick between inspirational and inspiring, and it's so inspirational, so inspiring. He's, I don't know, anybody I think can take from this and think like, damn, if Miles has that brain that gives him all those beautiful things and also all those struggles, if he has a brain that is that good and that bad at the same time, and he gets through it and he can do the things that he does, learn how to work with it, learn how to live with it, and make these things. I mean, he makes delicious, wonderful things that makes life more beautiful, more spectacular, more lived in for countless human beings. You know, there's something really magical about feeding somebody and feeding them something beautiful and feeding them something they've never tried before. And he does that all the time. He talks about some management style stuff, which I think is really interesting, how we deal with other people in terms of, are we harsh or kind or disappointed or whatever. It's just a beautiful conversation. I am giving it way enough preamble here, I think. I'm just excited about it. Yeah, listen to this conversation with acclaimed, brilliant young chef and my best friend, Miles Thompson, as he talks about his good, bad brain with me. Thank you. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, here I
have a lot of cable.
Yeah, take more cable.
So I can go for a walk around the room if I get uncomfortable.
Yeah, which would be nice. I think that kind of vibe of
communal salon of hanging
and having this. I like that. I like the being tethered, like electronics that are tethered.
Yeah,
have a very artifact kind of vibe.
Are we recording right now?
We are recording right now.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I just like to
just get into it.
Get breathing.
I didn't know we were starting. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, well, it's so funny. That's only funny how fast you jumped on that, because I feel like for a few people I've done this with, I'll just do this, then we just do this for like 7 minutes or something like that, and then they'll be like, and I just think it's interesting. Now I feel like there's a metric I should pay attention to of like how fast people go like, are we starting now? You know?
Yeah.
Like how long it takes them for me to be like, how long do you need before we properly begin, before I go, yes, you're right, I should do this. So hello, welcome to My Good Bad Brain. This is a podcast about like mental health and being a person and stuff.
Yeah.
And today I'm with Miles Thompson.
Yeah.
Like how long do people need to,
I don't know,
before they're uncomfortable with like,
I think once you drop the line about what the show is, they would know, unless they asked before that. Well, that's what I mean.
I almost feel like I'm unconsciously trying to wait for them to
cue it up,
to go, are we starting now? Mm-hmm. You know? And some people take longer, and some people are like, oh, are you starting now?
Yeah, well, right, I mean, once you brought up being tethered, I was like, okay, this sounds very poetic. I think we're getting into the game right now.
That's funny. That is funny. Well, I said, like, before we start recording, too, that there's the weird thing of, like, as soon as you're recording a thing, I'll tell you something I've noticed doing this. I don't know the last time I've had conversations with people for 40 minutes, an hour, 3 hours, whatever, where we don't pick our phones up.
Yeah, I mean, I put my phone on airplane mode, so yeah. I'm distraction free.
I know, but it's interesting. That alone, like much less like we're recording it, it's vaguely monitored. We're a little bit start monitoring ourselves. It's, you know, but just the act alone of how unnatural it is now to really tune in with somebody, is weird. Mm-hmm. Which I feel like is related to food a little bit.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you talk about phones, like go on anybody's Instagram account and there's like food everywhere, and but how tuned in are you to something that you're eating if the first reaction to it is to take a photograph of it?
That is interesting, but one could argue, well, first I still think it's very funny that we put pictures of our food online and people like to criticize it.
Yeah.
But like the weirdest thing is everyone likes to criticize selfies and food pictures. They're like, oh, who cares, you know? But like those are what we value most innately as organisms, are the faces of people we are familiar with who are part of our tribe, and sustenance.
Yeah.
And it's so weird that we unconsciously just put that out. like instinctively, oh, we have technology, we're thousands of years away from being cave people. I'm just gonna put
look, I ate today.
Yeah,
look, this person's alive and I'm together with them.
Yeah,
yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, no, it's actually a really interesting point. It makes complete sense. I mean, those are the things we value. So, you know, that's pretty cool.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, like I do think that about the selfie thing. Like you're supposed to feel narcissistic or whatever about it. Like it's taking pictures of yourself. But like when I actually look online, like you have an Instagram account, I get more likes on pictures of me than just stuff that I think is cool.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I rarely put up pictures of myself, but I always get like at least 200% more likes.
Yeah, and I started realizing when I go on there, even if they do a picture every day, some people are a little bit too much, especially if they do the same face in every picture, which is weird. But it makes me happy to see the people that I like I think in a very unconscious tribal way, like this is my weird little tribe, and it makes me happy to see their faces, and so I'm like instinctively double tap, and you're like, it's just weird that this thing we'll criticize is a thing that we unconsciously actually like for other people. So like we're just participating in this human tribe thing. Be like, well, here I am. But like there's something that, you know, makes everybody feel shame about that. I feel like we're supposed to go like, well, how dare you say, well, here I am.
Yeah.
You know,
no, I understand that. And it's definitely an interesting thing. I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting that we started talking about Instagram right off the bat. That's because it's something that's become very important in people's work and livelihood. You know, for at least, I mean, maybe not if you're an accountant. You know, it's not like tax forms. Oh my gosh!
I bet we could go looking right now. I bet there's there's got to be one famous like accountant, the Instagram accountant. You know, hey, here's a tip for today when you're filling out your 1040 EZ forms. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there is. It's just interesting, like when one of the guys I work with is like, hey, I've noticed you're like more active on Instagram. Why is that? It's like, I don't know. I mean, I guess it should be. You know, it's this weird like extra part of. I don't know. This is funny. It sounds so vain in the beginning, and we're going to get into much deeper stuff later, I'm sure. But it's just like it's this weirdly important thing. At least in my field, I know, because we're talking about food and all that. Yeah. It's like, well, what are you doing? And like, I love scrolling through Instagram and seeing what other chefs are cooking, and like what other restaurants are serving in their plateware and their stemware and their silverware, and you know what their uniforms are like. And I was actually talking to the same guy that I work with about. There used to be this website called eGullet.
I feel like I remember that.
Yeah, eGullet was like it was like a kind of a open forum internet site where you could post like, how do you make veal demi-glace properly or something like that, and then some other chef or cook would be like, well, this is how I've done it at this place, and Grant Achatz is notorious for writing on it, and he writes about it in his book on Life on the Line about like how that's how he would, you know, communicate with other people and learn about stuff. And I think that's actually how through that he got the job at in Chicago, the first job before he opened Alinea.
It was called Three something. Trio, yeah. Three something. But
in
Evanston. That's close to where I grew up. Yeah.
But
the best restaurant there is Buffalo Joe's, unfortunately.
Buffalo Joe's?
Yeah. Buffalo wings, dude. Suicide fries.
All flat wings.
Waffle fries. They put the sauce on it and jalapenos and that like weird melty cheddar. And they call them suicide fries.
Suicide fries?
So good. Double frying those wings.
Oh yeah, well, one less than Korean, but almost there.
Yeah. Anyway,
but what I was saying about eGullet is back then, you know, this was over 10 years ago. Well, you know, Alinea just, you know, hit an important anniversary, but you know, over 10 years ago, you would go online and there was no Instagram, there was no like thousands of blogs about Korean food. Any of that stuff. Is like you had eGullet. You had a question, you asked the universe of the internet, and maybe someone would know how to make like oxney soup and would like explain how their grandma did it.
Right.
But now it's funny because I was talking to this guy that I work with about it, and you know, nowadays if you want to learn how to do anything, it's either on the internet or you can troll and scroll through social media and find someone, direct message them, ask them about it. Like, I'm sure you could get the recipe for the helium apple balloon at Alinea if you just like direct messaged Mike Bagel and we were like, hey chef, you know,
What's
can you help me figure out how to do this? I want to do it for a science project.
What is the helium apple
It's an apple taffy balloon filled with helium that they bring out like a balloon to the dining room and you eat it.
That's
and
really
it, like, pops
fun.
And it's like, yeah.
Damn. That place sounds... I mean, I ate there once when I was 18.
The craziest thing, I was talking to someone about you the other day, and for the thing that we're going to do on Friday, the interview. And he was saying that, did Jared have any formative food experiences in his life that you know about? I was talking about like when you went to Alinea.
Yeah.
All that time ago. I mean, you basically went
Paradigm
like
shifter.
Months after the restaurant opened.
Yeah, I had no idea.
No,
I went because I had someone who was a babysitter when I was a kid, like a nanny. Like she lived with us for a summer and helped raise us, maybe a couple of summers. And she was like living in, I think she still lives in Austin, working for some newspaper. And I don't know, we just would stay in touch. I was 18 and she asked if I wanted to, she's like, I heard about this restaurant visiting Chicago and would you like to come with this thing? Cause I was into food. Like I was like, when I was 12, took like a French cooking class to local appliance stores, like me and all these middle-aged moms at like an oven store and like learning how to make salmon and croûte, which, you know, God bless my parents. They like, I was like, here's my shopping list, and they came back, and now I have no idea at the time. I had no idea, but now I know what a whole salmon costs, like whole fucking salmon fillet. And they just came back with it, and I was like, now I'm like, that's like $100 piece of fish or something like that. Anyway, but so she knew I was like into cooking, even though I was just a kid, and I had never. I wasn't like, see now you can like tell when someone's like, oh, you're like a food person, you're like hooked into the culture and paying attention, but I didn't have any of that.
Well, that's also going back, just not to interrupt you, but going back to like the social media stuff. It's like, you know, or any of the stuff about just popular food. Well, you know, at that time there was the foodie, which now people make fun of as a term.
Yeah,
but
we a long time ago were trying to come up with a better term because foodie, it just sounds so bad. I'm a foodie. I like onion jam.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that's just delicious. But at the same time, you know, we. It's the ego thing. Like there was no forum for it, so it's like you couldn't like out someone for being like, oh, do you like non-prick? Like, are you into Thai food or this kind of thing? Like, oh yeah, I love it. There's these 5 places that I go to. It's like, do you like? It was a kind of an unspoken thing. Like, do you like food? Do you like eating out? Do you like experiencing it? It was like that was still when it was in its nascent form in this country. I mean, 10, 15 years ago.
That's true.
It wasn't like, San Sebastian, Spain. You got like a 6-year-old at a tapas bar, like eating all this crazy, amazing, tinned fish and eels and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And it's not even a second thought. Right. It's like surprising when children are into food in our country.
I say that. We were talking about that recently about Korean food. Like I love Korean food. Oh, yeah. We live right like on the edge of Koreatown. Miles and I live in the same building for anybody. I was thinking like what a blessing it is to be raised with a more complex palate. That like if you grow up and you're a baby eating like fermented like kimchi and stuff and just any kind of fermented, like basically the Western palate is sweet and salty. You get sweet, you get salty, you bounce back and forth between the two. And I think there's a real argument to be said for like that's part of like obesity and overeating and stuff. Like like you don't satiate your whole palate, and until you add those like 3 or 4 other flavors, you get some umami, you get bitter. You get sour, you get that like fermenty vibe, whatever. If you get all of that in a meal, you're satisfied much sooner.
It's like eating miso soup for breakfast. Like you just have a small cup of miso soup and you're like, I'm good. Because you have the umami, sweet, salty.
Plus you're hydrated. Water's like a lot of volume, so it fills you up.
Yeah. And then with like a little side of rice and some green onion, it's like, I wish that I grew up eating that. I had a great, my parents are awesome. I had great breakfast. Right. But like now being an adult who loves miso soup. Yeah. It's like, could you imagine just waking, and I'm sure those kids hate it. Yeah. Because totally. This is the thing that their parents hate for them.
They wish they had Eggos and stuff like that.
Eggos,
I wish the toaster's true.
Bacon.
I think that's true. But I feel like if you're raised with more complex things, not only that, like, so you get satiated sooner because you've satisfied your whole palate, your brain stops looking for something it's missing. I think it inherently must make you more intelligent. Like there's like some anthropological folks or whatever who suggest the possibility that like actually being an omnivore is part of why humans' brains are bigger than other animals, and that like omnivores tend to have bigger brains, I think, or be smarter. And partly because like if you're a koala is a very smart, simple brain, very simple, stupid animal. It only eats one thing. It eats eucalyptus. That's it. And there's argument that like that brain never had to start calculating other inputs and go like, if you're an omnivore and so anything is on the table, you have to like start developing a brain that can identify different types of plants.
And
this one's
danger.
poisonous. This one's not. Learning from your mistakes, all that kind of stuff. And starting to put it two and two together to go, well, maybe this one has these traits of this one. Maybe this one's more likely to be edible and this one's more likely to be poisonous. Like that kind of a thing is part of why they think our brains got bigger. And I feel like if you're a baby eating like crazy weird stuff from childhood, I feel like that inherently would broaden your horizons or make more neural pathways where, you know, if you can have a broader amount of experiences that inherently feel good to you, like some of that's learned.
I mean, when you're a baby, everything is like a psychedelic experience, you know. So like,
totally.
Imagine like being a baby and like you see. I know when I was a kid, I used to eat lemons, and like,
interesting.
And, like I love acidic food, but like I loved eating lemons. Like imagine having breast milk. And then like a month later, someone hands you a lemon piece. Yeah. Like imagine how like hallucinogenic that experience would have to be.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Man, that's so funny. Yeah, that is the feeling on sort of when you're in mind expanding spaces. That's really funny to say. It is just like being a baby. It's like you're seeing something brand new for the first time. I think that is maybe one of the failings of the human brain. I mean, we talk like all about this idea between the difference between myself, my consciousness or whatever, and then my brain, which is sometimes very hard to separate from myself, but definitely affects who I am. And I was thinking like, I think to stay sane and exist in reality and say time moves this direction, I keep track of things, your body has to start shutting down some options of possibility just to move forward. Like you have to pick a lane. And so one of them is like, okay, time moves this way. We got to just do time does that. And then I think in more mundane versions of that, like your brain can go, you decide early on, I like these things. I don't like sour things. I don't like sweet. I don't like spicy things. And when those moments come later in your life where you do get something new, like your palate expands, like, oh, coffee tastes good all of a sudden or something like that. I think there is a very weirdly childlike thing where like you're back to when things were brand new because you've had to lock down the like availability for brand new in your brain just to survive and just to like comprehend a day. And so when your brain gets confident enough or smart enough where you have a little space where you can open that door to like things I don't know again, that is a very infancy like experience. And I do feel like certain like drugs and stuff, like, you know, a little bit of mushroomy stuff, weed to a certain degree, can do that, can kind of open your baby brain a doorway a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the other thing that just as you're talking, I'm thinking of the Ratatouille moment, you know, like what is that all about where like you eat something that this is a little different than like a new experience, but where you eat something and it transports you back to your grandma's table or something like that. Time travel. The time travel thing that's the most exciting thing about cooking, I think. When you get something like
agree. That. I really do think time is just something we only perceive in one direction, but is all on top of itself. And I think some of that's evidenced by like the way our memory works and like that there are giant swaths of memory that are just gone, but there are some very mundane, weird things that stick around from even very young childhood. And I wonder about things like that, like a sensory experience that's so big or so suffused so perfectly with like not just the flavor that was good, but the smells and the care and the comfort and the love that was coming from the person and whatever it was. I almost feel like they're these multidimensional, like a spike through a stack of paper. Yeah. And like that spike through the stack of paper is like is united throughout like all your planes of existence. Yeah. And so when I eat something like that moment was so powerful, it resonates out and backwards, like backwards in time and forwards in time, such that I don't know. I like you'll eat that, like let's just say it's a chicken soup or something like that, and you'll eat the chicken soup, and it'll just be because it's a resonating harmonic, like the sine wave of the memory from that, like the ripple line of that memory perfectly syncs up from back 20 years ago. Yeah,
I mean, it's the same thing as with music. I mean, there's often times where, you know, when I was really studying music really intensely, I would listen to 5, 6, 7 full albums a day, like just being around.
Well, you were like a professional grade musician. Like you studied classical guitar for college.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I was definitely not the most accomplished person at the school that I went to for 4 months before I decided not to go to college anymore. But I was there, and I definitely studied music with a lot of intention.
Yeah.
But in that way, like, I'll hear a song and you're back in that room at that time with that
Right.
weather and those people and the smells and the girl you were in love with, and like all of that stuff is real again. And how is that? It's like the only things in my life that have ever moved me in that way are music and food. You know, like music, I think, is something that everyone experiences, you know, and most people like. I mean, there's very few people I know that don't like music. But food is something that you have to. There's more people I would say that don't like food, like for mental reasons, like mental health reasons,
Yeah.
and like struggle and self control and deprecation or flagellation or whatever, that they have struggle with eating. But and there might not be so much of a emotional resonance with food for the amount of people as like with music, but those are things that undeniably, like, even I have a friend that does not like eating. Like he eats, no, he doesn't like have any.
Not like an eating disorder
No,
thing.
he's just like, I get that you have to eat to survive, and like
Yeah.
that's the function of it. Which
Yeah,
to me
but the
blows my
ritual
mind.
doesn't affect him. The sensory experience.
But even he would be like, he would have meals, and he'd be like, wow, like I actually like enjoyed that meal.
Oh.
And that's interesting. But I mean, I think.
Well, that's because that's like any art, I guess. You
Yeah.
can shift someone's paradigm. You can surprise people and go like, I don't know, what's something like that for me. I guess like painting maybe for a while, like still art. I just didn't really care. I thought it was fine. I appreciated it, but it wasn't like something I experienced. And then I don't know, you see a couple things, or it starts to wiggle its way in, and you see one and be like, whoa, wait, this one really fucking hit me.
Yeah.
I think the first time I saw Jackson Pollock in person was a little bit like that, in the sense of like, I mean, I guess I liked art a little by that point, but you see Jackson Pollock pictures all the time. There's these splatters. You see them like in postcards and printings and whatever, and it's everyone like to make fun of it. And it's like, oh, I could just pour a fucking bucket of paint on a thing, and that's art, I guess. And then I saw one in person, and it was overwhelming. Like, I still think about it right now. I can think about the emotion it felt. Like, that person was envisioning. It's just a black spot basically on a big canvas, and it's all scribbly, all these different things, but it's this black, and it is deep. Like, it is this black fucking hole that you feel instantly like you're getting sucked into. It is like the void, and you can tell that he was seeing that fucking void real bad, and like, it's there, and it's there when it's right next to Roy Lichtenstein's, where you can look and you can see like pencil marks underneath the dots. You know what I mean? Like, where you're like, it's just a different thing. And that was a really wonderful experience to go like, oh, this thing that's not for me, I don't get it, is like, I can't deny this right now.
Well, that's the cool thing. Like, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, about fine art in general. Fine art, I mean that across the board. I don't mean that just like fine visual art. I mean, mostly what I've been thinking about is food and fine dining, because it's like, as I cook more and decide like what I want to do, that will be my real stamp. Like, when I open my own restaurant, and like, what is going to be that? What does that mean? What is your food? What is your art? It's like, you look at someone like a Grant Achatz, or like a Rene Redzepi, or you look at any of those amazing chefs, and you're just like, okay, you look at a plate of their food and like, that's this guy.
That's this guy.
That's this guy. That's this person's thing. It's like, this one, one chef is like incredibly precise, and one chef is a little more whimsical, and one chef is like really this and this and that kind of stuff. And there's a certain point in time where I'm thinking, did these guys decide this, or did it come over them? Like with Jackson Pollock, like, was he? I don't know very much about him, so
I don't know either. I didn't know anything.
Could he draw? Like, okay, so I know a lot more about Pablo Picasso, but like, he was a hyper realistic artist,
right?
He could, at 15, he was drawing these beautiful hyper realistic pictures, and all that, and then he just like, his art deformed into this unbelievable thing. It's also amazing and beautiful, and I've seen a lot of his art in person, and it's super impressive and aggressive and beautiful. But is it something that like came over him, and one day he was just like, I make this now, or is he like just on a ride?
I think about Cormac McCarthy. Like, I would think Cormac McCarthy is just such a good writer, and he doesn't use punctuation really. He uses periods, and that's it. I think in The Road there's like No commas, no apostrophes, and no capital letters, I don't think even. And I loved that so fucking much when I read it. And to me, there's something about, like, you can tell me Cormac McCarthy doesn't know Strunk and White. You know, he doesn't know the fucking elements of style. Yeah, we know. We know that we understand there's these rules and arguments about Oxford commas and shit like that. But the, like, brilliance to me in going, like, and so you don't fucking need that. Like, you I think it's actually a tragedy of our culture that you have to attain the sort of, as is the standard of the society's version of perfection or expertdom or whatever, in order to be taken, to be listened to, to disregard it. You know, like some money, like, you know, who's the billionaire? Like Warren Buffett. I feel like I saw something like saying, like, oh, money's not important. You have to, you know, something like that. Obvious things, but everyone listens to him because he's a billionaire. They go, oh, he's a billionaire and he's saying that. But if it doesn't make it any more true than somebody completely impoverished who's actually been hurt by money and the value of it, saying, like, you know, it's not important. It's really not important.
It's about your family and about that kind of stuff. Yeah.
But that person's like, okay, well, you'd probably, if you had money though, it'd be different.
Really,
and I mean, I don't mean to be like naive in the sense, like, we're talking about money over the amount that can, like, you can eat and you can, you know, sleep, you know, whatever. But, like, after basic standard of living, I just think so. Going back to it's interesting
about, like, standard of art too, because, like, you know, the Ramones, like, those guys could not play the guitar like Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, that's a good example.
But it's like so much fucking soul.
You know, I feel like in music, actually, maybe more than any other of the fine arts of, like, of art forms that are accepted, is the one where the like, quote unquote talent doesn't matter as much to people as, like, just what's the fucking truth coming out of the end product.
It's how raw it is, and that's why one thing, like, when we started back with the Vagrancy Project, which was basically a traveling restaurant run out of apartments that we would work on together.
We would do like 12-course meals out of single bedroom apartments for 10, 12 people. You do them twice a week. Yeah. Usually with full cocktail pairings too, and that's if you don't comprehend
for everyone.
Fucking 12 courses. That's a no dishwasher.
144 plates.
Crazy.
But what we were talking about is the rawness, like punk jazz, like punk chef, like punk jazz, like, you know, it was 22 and a half when we started doing that. Like, okay, take anyone that's 22 and a half years old, even if they've been cooking for 10 years before that. Like, you don't know anything about, you know, being, you know...
Well, you don't really know that much about yourself.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
So how could you know anything about your art, you know?
Exactly. It's like, that's the thing. And, like, that was like 7 years ago for me, and it's like, I still... don't really know what's going on with any of it.
But the beauty, I think, though, is in the subtlety of, like you're saying, when you're raw, though, beautiful art can still come out.
It can be so much more angular and jagged and crazy, and, like, it's like, it doesn't have. There's no need for polish at that point. It's just about soul and expression.
Yeah, and I think also maybe polish is one of the things that's actually more possible to teach. And sometimes people can become all polish, and you're like, well, what do you fucking? You've done nothing wrong here. All of your choices are safe. This is fine. Thank you. You know, and, like, if you can't, like, you gotta sometimes work to get back to some of that angularity. You know. But that, I don't know, I think it's important for us to be willing to be humble enough before the universe to say, like, anytime we hear something, see something true that's expressed, that we don't start looking immediately for reasons to dismiss it because it scares us, or because it's, like, you know, just because it's good and intimidates us, or I don't know, or because the society tells us, like, somebody should be an expert before they can be right.
Well, to jump on, piggyback on that, like, so in food, there are, like, the highest honor that a restaurant can receive is to get 3 Michelin stars. Right?
Yeah, right.
So, like, that's, like, this is, like, kind of roundabout, but it's going to make a lot of sense at the end of this thought. It's like, look at all of those restaurants, research them, look at the food, see what it's like. Like, if you really, really, really go into it past, like, the world's 50 best list and all that, and, like, you look at these, you know, restaurants in you know, rural Japan, you look at these restaurants in China, look at these restaurants in Europe and all that, that's beyond just the stuff on the list, you'll see that it's not all magazine food. Like some of it is very humble looking, you know? And that's the thing, coming back to it. It's like it all is very refined and the plateware is nice and the service is unbelievable. But the thing about it is like there's looking at like grading something, there's no way to really codify an experience. Because like for you, your experience at Alinea was like formative. It changed the way you think about food and service in restaurants.
It was
forever.
like I cried a couple times in the meal. I was like, this is as much art as any other, structured means of affecting my emotion and telling a story.
Sure. And I completely understand that. And I've had a similar experience at a restaurant at that level. I've also had a similar experience at a hole-in-the-wall Mexican restaurant eating birria on a Sunday morning, being so fucking tired from working so hard and just having that warm hug of like soup made by someone who's been doing it their entire life.
Yeah, fuck it.
You know, like you can't... that's the same thing with the Ramones and Jimi Hendrix, or like Bach and the Smiths. You know, like you can be touched by both of them in like Johann Sebastian Bach, like technically perfect musician. You know, I'm sure if you watched him play the organ, it would just be insane. But something that like a singer-songwriter like Nick Drake, you know, it's like, okay, man, like you're just ripping my heart out. Yeah, right now. He's an amazing guitar player.
Nick Drake?
Nick Drake.
Not Drake.
Not Drake. No.
Drake rips my heart out too.
Dude, Drake.
I don't know
just
Nick
crushes
Drake.
it.
I don't think
Nick Drake. You'd love Nick Drake.
Cool.
He is an Englishman. He is a guitar player. He used to play his guitar in all different crazy tunings. So
that's cool.
So really, really cool chord structure and stuff like that. He's a finger stylist, so lots of picked stuff. Richard Thompson played on some of the albums. There's a lot of orchestration on the songs, but he died at a young age from an antidepressant overdose.
Oh, damn.
Back then, they weren't as regulated, so they don't even know if he like ate the whole bottle or he just took like one extra and died.
Damn. So, when was that?
70s.
Wow. I bet antidepressants then were aggressive.
Gnarly.
I mean, I bet they were like just drugs. But I bet they're still very serious drugs.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I wonder if they were more just like sedatives, more like something narcotic, or you know what I mean?
Who knows? I mean,
do you mind if we talk about that stuff a little bit about mental health? Like,
I'm just gonna open up a soda water real quick.
Go for it.
All right.
Yeah, no, so I wanted to talk a little, this being this mental health podcast, one of the things I was hoping to do when I set out with it was talk to people who are very accomplished and very successful. And I mean, you are the fucking most inspiring person I know in terms of pursuing dreams, working hard at them. In a world where like, I truly don't think meritocracy exists and people, I think nobody embodies more like, fucking do your goddamn best anyway for its own intrinsic value and is like rewarded for it than you. I have been on projects that are the hardest thing I've done, and I'm like, if Miles could work as hard as I saw him work for Vagrancy Project, for anything, I can fucking buckle down and do these 90-hour weeks, these 80-hour weeks. But you also like many people have your own fucking brain problems.
Yeah, I have bipolar disorder.
Bipolar, straight up bipolar.
Yeah, bipolar 1.
And do you take medications for it?
I do, yeah.
What do you take? Can you mind if I ask?
Yeah, no, I take lithium bicarbonate, I take Abilify, and then I take like Ativan.
Killer.
As well.
Do you take that stuff like every day?
No, I don't take the Ativan every day. That's only if I have like a really intense...
That's for anxiety?
Anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the lithium and the Abilify I take every day.
And how long have you been doing medication stuff for?
I've been on medication. I've taken a lot of different types of medication.
Yeah.
Since I was 18, so 12 years.
And you've taken, you take like ever illegal drugs and stuff like that too?
I have.
Yeah.
I've done all of them.
You're not doing them now though.
No.
Yeah.
No. We're in California, so marijuana is legal.
Yeah.
So
you don't smoke much weed.
I don't smoke much weed. No.
Yeah.
I used to smoke a lot of weed.
Yeah. I mean, these are questions I'm asking that I kind of know. I'm asking for the audience for context because I think I know I did it for a long time. I didn't get medication for brain stuff until just this last year, but had no problem self-medicating.
Yeah, of course.
Forever.
Yeah.
Because I
mean,
really...
mixing the two is an awful idea, but I did that for many years.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got lucky. Did you ever have any like scares or anything?
No.
It's funny because we've talked... Some of these are real questions. Like I don't think I ever asked that. I don't ever think I knew if you had like an OD problem or anything like that ever.
I never OD'd.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Fuck yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I was like, have you gone on periods where you go off them? And do you notice the difference or change them up?
I mean, in the 12 years, I've always had a prescription, but there were sometimes months, and I think there's never like a full year where I didn't take medication. I like would take it and I wouldn't take it, and then I was I was married, and for a lot of that, I didn't take care of myself at all with the medication and therapy stuff. I just I just ignored it, and that was really
just doing work and stuff.
Just doing work and not taking care of myself and not taking care of things I should have been taking care of as a person who was relying on another person relied on. It really took that ending for me to start taking care of myself. Yeah. And that's like, how you slip into like, oh, but if I no, now I'm look now I'm better,
right.
And like you want to say that, or it took losing a lot to realize how important it was to actually take care of yourself. Like it took losing someone else, which is really painful and hard, but it's true.
I mean, I think that's a super fucking valuable thing to mention. I think when people hear terms like self-care, self-love, a lot of people like to scoff at it and stuff, be like, it sounds selfish, but I don't think they really understand. It really is like putting your oxygen mask on so you can help somebody else. If you're dying and you can't breathe, you can't help somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't show up for them.
I mean, if you are not taking care of yourself and you want someone else, and then you blame someone for not taking care of themselves, you're not setting a good example, and you're not helping anyone.
Yeah,
you have to, my mom would always say, take care of number one first, and number one is you, the person who is in your brain, in your life. And yes, and I would be like, no, and my mom, she's a mom, so she takes care of her family first, but she had to take care of herself first, and she grew up like, her mom died when she was 28. So she didn't have one. She hasn't had one for more than half her life. And like, that's just insane.
Dude, I wonder, we've never talked about that. My mom's mom died when she was 12. And so I wonder if there's some weird, like if there was some harmonic thing that resonated that made us friends.
Maybe.
Because of just because we had I think you'd have a similar experience as a mom that loses your mom, and then you're just doing your best without a mom to guide you as you become a mom.
Yeah. I mean, she had children 6 years after her mom died. She married my dad after her mom died. Her mom never met my dad.
Weird. 6 years after her mom died too, because my mom had me when she was 19.
Yeah.
Surreal.
Harmonic, dude.
Yeah. Wait, so keep going. What you were talking about, what were you talking about?
Talking about just taking care of yourself.
Yeah, right. So you said your mom would take care of herself.
Yeah, I mean, she said take care of number one, and if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care, like you said, you can't take care of someone else. It's the oxygen mask thing. Yeah. Exactly.
So when I don't know, I'm pretty new. I mean, 6 or 7 months now on medication. It's been really life-changing for me. Very small doses of some stuff that my experience with it, which was really surprising, was like, I was worried that it would change me. It would change my personality. It would change...
well, I actually would like to talk about that.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to know. So I'm offering just mine because I'd like to know... Because the other thing I feel like I felt with my stuff was that it's not a magic bullet, but it did level me out. It was like triage to get me to a space where I could now employ the things I learned in therapy and self-care techniques. I still, if I eat like shit too much, if I don't exercise enough, if I don't work and play balance right, and I don't do self-inquiry and blah, 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 a million other fucking things. I don't allow certain thoughts to go to other thoughts. I don't believe my brain all the time. If I don't do those things, like I'm still fucking crazy, even if I am on pills. But the pills like gave me the little chemical drip imbalance fixes that allowed me to like reach a space of possibility.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what your diagnosis is actually.
Oh, it's just depression and ADHD. Is all I have.
I did know that, but I think for the sake of this,
it's
sorry,
helpful
for everyone else to know.
Thank
that.
you.
I don't want to embarrass you or make it was
No.
a podcast about mental health. You can't get embarrassed.
Yeah.
But
I don't know if I actually didn't ask for a specific diagnosis, but I take ADHD medication. I take an antidepressant. The antidepressant also though is prescribed for I was reading about it for anxiety and sleeping problems and stuff. And I for years I thought I might be. My dad's bipolar 2, and I just thought I was like
bipolar 2 or bipolar also
2, number 2.
Okay.
What's the difference?
I knew once.
Yeah.
And bipolar 1. I don't want to say
we're not
something.
asking for speed.
We'll put it up on the internet afterwards.
Maybe. I mean, the whole point of this to me is like we're not fucking experts. We're not doctors. I think everybody's an authority on their own experience. But as your understanding of yours, what is it?
If you have bipolar 1, you have a manic break before the age of 18.
Got it.
My head when I was 14 years old.
Got it.
And you're born. It's a chemical imbalance in your brain.
Yeah.
But there is a distinct difference in the two of them, which I will research. I used to know it when I was like really researching everything. When I was diagnosed, I knew a lot about it. And then in the time between, I've focused on other things. I did a lot of drugs and learned about other stuff. So, but for self-medication stuff, we'll probably talk about that again later. But with me, like, I have, because of the chemistry of my brain, like a more extreme spectrum of emotions than a normal person. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't mean that like
quote unquote
normal. It might not be like someone drops something on the floor and I freak the fuck out every single time because I have bipolar disorder. No.
Got it.
It means that like when I'm up or pushing towards manic, like I have a lot of energy and I like won't sleep and I'm very creative and I would like all that kind of stuff. And that's something that like after the pop-up restaurant, I was a chef of the first chef job I had in a physical restaurant. I did not take my medication for like pretty much that time.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And that was like I was working like 108 hours a week.
Yeah, dude.
And like legitimately I was like checking in and out, like making sure to see how much I was working. 7 days. I think I worked for like 7 months straight.
Fuck.
When it first opened.
Yeah, like no day off.
Yeah, legit. No day off. I mean, like I wouldn't work like 14 hours every day, but I was working every single day.
Right.
And
by the way, that's not hyperbole. That's not like people say stuff like that. People,
that's no bullshit. Like
yeah.
I like literally 7 months straight.
I think actually any cooks or chefs listening will know that that's definitely not hyperbole.
Yeah,
but
for sure. But I love Mania.
Hell yeah, I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? And like I used to love doing uppers for in terms of like drugs.
Yeah.
Whatever it was when I used to do that stuff, because it like fed into that natural mania and also pushes you into mania.
Of course.
But just on the natural brain side stuff of mania, there's just this unbelievable energy. Like you'll go to bed and you'll sleep for like an hour and a half and you get up and you're like, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
Go to the fish market at 5:30 in the morning, fucking cruise around there, drive all around town, getting stuff, get back to the restaurant. Unlimited energy, unlimited ideas, grandiose thinking. We're going to do everything, you know?
Dude, that's interesting. And that's part of why I thought I was bipolar forever. And who knows? But I had the same, I would be so moody and then I'd have these fucking, you feel like you're high. And it's actually from things I've learned about ADHD. They say that with ADD stuff, like a lot of people are misdiagnosed as depressives for a long time or other things. And one of the things I was reading about is a lot of people with ADD don't, I've said this on here before, but they don't exhibit outward hyperactivity. They have what they call internal emotional hyperarousal. And that's always what I experienced. And I also...
Spielkiss in Yiddish.
Spielkiss?
Yeah. That's like really that where your body's like shaking on the inside.
Yes, that's the feeling. And then just with the things I thought I might be, because I would read about it, and the manic episodes I felt I would have were fucking awesome. Like I'd get so much done. I'd be so happy. I'd be so excited about life, and like, you know, it wasn't always fun. And I mean, I also did a lot of, I think that's why I rode motorcycles and all these different things. Because you'd be like, I feel so fucking good, you know? I mean, I've learned the way dopamine receptors work for ADD people is maybe part of the reason I did all that too. They don't work, so you're kind of looking for a blast.
Stimulation.
But anyway, so mania feels good.
Yeah, mania feels good. And like, you know, when you're depressed, everything shuts down, you know? And like, I remember being like If you saw Phantom Thread when he gets poisoned with the mushrooms.
I haven't seen it. No, I haven't seen it.
You got to see it. It's a good movie. But they're like, he's in bed for like days at a time. He's poisoned. I'm not giving anything away. Don't worry. You'll see the movie. But like at the end of the mania, I remember I had one unbelievable crash that ended in a huge like panic attack. And I was living downtown on the 11th floor of a building, and I was just in my bed with my wife at the time, just like freaking the fuck out about like everything, just like crying and shaking and screaming and like, get away from me, I need you, like all of this like psych ward shit was happening. And we can talk about psych wards too, because I spent some time in one time. 2 times, but once for an extended period of time. But that was awful. And like the thing about, to go back to that, the crash after the mania sucked. It's happened to me a few times. It happened to me a few times when I was with this person, and there's a huge amount of selfishness in not having self-care, like you said. People think like, oh, you're just self-care and this and the maca and the fucking this shit, and like I'm this person, you spend all this money on yourself, and like I spend a lot of money on myself for self-care. I see a psychiatrist, a psychologist, and I get medication. I buy myself nice things and do this stuff, and like that's pretty much, besides my rent and like car stuff, like all of my money goes to self-care, really. Like if you looked at it, that's where it goes. And like, to get back to it, like I wasn't taking care of myself, so I wanted this person to take care of me, which is completely unfair.
Yeah, it's impossible.
It's too much to ask for anyone else to be like, just why aren't you helping me feel better?
Right.
It's like, it was too much for her. And I understand that now. Yeah. But then I was like, I can't believe you're just going to leave me like this.
Right.
But I left myself like that.
Fuck yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's why I didn't understand that. And it took a lot of therapy and like actually fucking taking my medication and seeing the difference. And like, a lot of people with bipolar disorder, there's awesome books by this woman named Kay Redford Jameson. Mm-hmm. She has bipolar disorder, and she's a psychologist, I believe, or psychiatrist. She's a doctor. I think she's a psychologist. She worked at UCLA for a while. Touch with Fire is one of her books. One of the things that she says in one of her books is like, people with bipolar disorder are afraid that if they get medicated, and this is a thing in general, is like you lose your creative ability. Right. And I have a lot of fear of that. Yeah. Because like when I was heavily medicated, I had no motivation. Right. I was just like, okay, I get up and I'm tired. I go to work. And this is this, and like, okay, we're gonna like put a new dish on, and like, all right, like this dish sucks, and I'm gonna work on it for way too long, and I know that it sucks, but like maybe I'll make it better, and like, no, it sucks, like let's not change it, But then when I had the mania, it was like, let's change 4 dishes tonight, and like we would do it, and it would be a struggle. And like the other thing is, as I grew up and like, am getting more stabilized in my life with my mental state and whatnot, realize like the effect of yourself and your mental state on everyone around you. Like last night at the restaurant, like there was an accident with something, and like a bunch of food fell on the floor like before a big party, and I just like watched everyone's reaction to it. Like me 5 years ago would have just lit that cook up that knocked the food on the floor. Like it would have been like everyone turn around and everyone be quiet, and it was at 5:45 and we opened it at 5:30, and it would have been like everyone would have been nervous and felt like shit and not felt good all night. And I was like, there's a million ways to react, but there's really only one way, is be like, look, let's just fix it. Let's fix it. Let's go back into it. And like that, like you say, Jared, like when your face is like real crisis or real like stuff, you get really, really calm, and you get really like, all right, we're just gonna, your hand is bleeding a lot. Like, we're gonna fix it.
Yeah.
You know, like if any one of my cooks like cut themselves or anything, it's the same thing. I'd never freak out. And that's like in my life, I was like spending most of my life just freaking out about my mental state.
Right.
You know, just like, fuck me. Like, why am I sad? Why me? Why do I want to run in front of a car and get hit on Wilshire after a therapy session? You know, like, fuck this. This is stupid. Like, why am I putting myself through this? All for what reason? You know? It's all about how you react to everything in your life. And part of the clarity of therapy and medication is teaching you that, you know?
Giving you the space to
exactly the space
look
to
at your
breathe.
feeling and give you a chance to react.
Exactly.
Dude, that's huge. Like, there are several things there that, like, the thing you described, I mean, like that, just that sheer ability to have a very, very evocative moment, a very triggering moment, this huge fuck up in a restaurant, like, that's going to be a big problem. And to have the moment, because the reaction's not unnatural to go, fuck, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know, that's not unreasonable in the sense of like, here's a stimulus and this is a response that a human has. But the wherewithal to feel the emotion, to feel the situation, grok and clock and like incorporate the fact that your reaction is going to have an effect on people around you. It's going to have an effect on you. It's going to, and then their reactions to your reaction is going to have an effect on you, and go, so let's not create more conflict. Let's not create more toxicity. Let's create a situation that we will all be in our best position to work from the rest of the night, is enormous. I mean, that takes people years and years of practice and work and mental balancing and figuring out introspection. Some people will never get there. But the ability to do it, and I think it's empowering to know that you can do it. That somebody, frankly, I think people listening should find you incredibly inspiring. I mean, to overcome your brain to the point that you still struggle with it, you don't act like it's just fixed.
Right.
To be in dialogue with it, to have it still affect you in ways, and then say, I'm going to react differently than the way my brain is telling me to react, is huge. You did this thing that reminded me of something I witnessed. I tell people about all the time, about leadership strategies and basic notions of incentive, as like, we need incentive to do anything well. Like, if you are yelling and screaming, which a lot of kitchens are, and it comes from like the same thing as the hierarchy, the French kitchen culture,
system.
and the military, the brigade stuff, that it all stems from that like, the incentive is to not get yelled at, like punishment, like, or whatever. Like, if, you know, I'll do well, and it's not so much about reward or doing my best or something. It's just like, oh man, I just don't want to be miserable. I saw you shift that consciously when you were working, when it was, I think it was Alumet, Vagrancy Project, maybe. I think it was Alumet, or Vagrancy Project at Alumet. We were doing a residency. And I saw you, I was like a stark week. It was like a difference. I think I mentioned like, hey dude, you're like approaching the way you talk differently and stuff. And you told me that after working at other restaurants and basically learning the practice of yelling and how it works and taking it all very seriously, and we're in crunch time, the fucking kitchen's on fire and there's people out there, let's fucking move it, and yelling at people, which is the standard thing. You turned to this more like, you're clear and loud, but like calm, and there was no berating or anything. And I saw one day, and you said like, you just don't think that it helps people to yell at them or something like that. And you were saying that like it, you know, it seems more effective to talk to people and just like treat everyone with respect and calmly, and like things aren't a big deal, because, you know, they're not. We're all gonna fucking die, whatever.
It's just dinner.
It's just dinner, man. I mean, well, that's a great phrase. We're gonna get back. But I saw somebody fuck up. I saw somebody mess up like a carrot reduction, I think is what it was. They burned it, and I saw them bring it over to you, and you tasted it, and instead of, I've seen chefs scream at people. I've seen chefs be like, you fucking idiot, get the fuck back in. The funniest, to this day, the meanest thing I ever saw was the owner of this restaurant to a waiter that I worked at in high school as a food runner. I've told you this story. And it was they did one of the things they did was like fruits de mer, was like chilled plates of like shellfish, oysters and shellfish and shit. And I was a food runner, and I was bringing the food from the kitchen. I was on the way to the table, and I turned around on the way because I saw they didn't have their forks set up, their special forks set up. And, you know, it's not good to drop the stuff off without the thing. And I turned around looking right into the eyes of the owner of the restaurant, who's just this mean fucking guy. He was just the meanest guy. And And he goes, what are you doing? And I was like, why don't you bring them food or something like that? And I was like, oh, they don't have their setups. And the waiter who had the table, whose responsibility was for that setups, happened to like step right up at the same time, like probably wondering also why I wasn't bringing the food to the table. And instantly this evil fucking owner turns to him and he goes, I've never seen so much anger on someone's face about nothing, about nothing. And goes about like, forks. About the fucking, there's nobody forks. And he says to him, he goes, what do they eat with their fucking hands? You suck hole. Like literally just like that. So angry, couldn't figure out a word. Suck hole came out. And I was like, whoa. It's just dinner. Like, it's just dinner. And so seeing this, you taste this burned sauce and instead of getting mad and just, because it takes a lot. It takes real good carrots that cost money, that cost people time pulling them out of the fucking earth. You use very good shit from real farmers. Yeah. You just like looked sad. Like you looked like you shrugged a little and you kind of waved your hand and disappointed and you just said, just make it again. And the person reacted like it would have been better if you screamed at them. Like they seemed, because again, I think being disappointed implies a belief that they can do more. Yeah, like absolutely. It creates this space and it creates in them like, oh fuck, I'm really not living up. I know I can do better than why am I, to me it starts a whole existential spiral of like, why do I believe this is all I'm possible of? Why am I holding myself in? Yeah. Why am I doing this? The spark of divinity within me deserves a better shepherd. I should do more. Yeah. And they went, and it's so much more effective to be kind, be from a gentle place. And the worst possible thing that happens is I'm really disappointed, and it hurts people. Not hurts them, but they feel it more deeply, and because they're being treated as humans that you believe in. And I don't know. I think there's something really profound in that ability to pause, to step back from these gutsy emotions. And again, to say like the thing my brain is telling me is real isn't real all the time. The thing that's like, this is a big problem. This is fucked up. This is disappointing. Sometimes it's like, it's going to be food. It's going to be waste, which is a bummer. And it's going to be some time, but people are going to eat. We're going to make it. It's going to be good. That's huge, especially when you have a brain that has fucking crazy, like chemical imbalances that are telling you like, shit's fucking real all the time. Yeah. And it's crazy. Anyway, I just want to pause and commend that and thank you. And tell you I draw inspiration from it and that you should feel real fucking good about being at this point in your life that you can dialogue that much with yourself.
Well, it's interesting. I was thinking about this yesterday because I see in people that I work with now a lot of myself. Sometimes there's like, you're just like, why are you like so intensely angry about when things don't go right? Or like, why you get so riled up? Or like, why are you so down on yourself and like just quiet and like demure now? And it's like, and I think, I was thinking, well, maybe I wasn't thinking this, but I was struggling with myself. Like, well, maybe I just don't care as much as I used to. And I was like, well, that's absolutely not true. I just have more experience. You know what I mean? I know that if I freak out at somebody, they're going to have this reaction and everyone around them is going to have this reaction like you're saying. Yeah. Or it's like, if I'm in the shits and I'm getting murdered on the station and it's like, all I need to do is be honest, like, guys, I'm 15 minutes behind on those steaks. Rather than being like, no, I'll get it. I'll catch back up. I'm not going to say anything, but I'll catch back up. It's like, there's an honesty to the failure of the moment, you know?
Yes, I think people don't deal well with unknown. If I don't have a concrete answer for like a bad situation, if I can't see in the dark, then the most terrifying, horrifying thing is there. Your brain builds the worst case scenarios, and so you don't deal well with it. I think humans deal way worse with dishonesty and murkiness than they do with a hard reality. Yeah. And if you just can own up to a failure and describe the monster, describe the problem, say this is what's going on, then people can go, okay, great. We can deal with this problem.
I just need to send them another dish while their steak waits. You know, it's like, not like, when is it coming? 2 minutes. It's been 2 minutes. 5 minutes. Yeah. Just say 15.
Just say 15.
And then be like, I'm 20 minutes out. I'm sorry.
Yes. There's, you know what that makes me think of? You know, there's this paradox, this mathematical paradox, which is, it's the shoreline. This just made me think of the shoreline paradox, which is like, if you measure how does it work? If you measure a shoreline, right, which from looking way high up, and we say we use 50-mile increments, we can measure the shoreline of the United States, and it's like, 50 mile, 50 mile, 50 mile. Okay, it bends this way, it curves this way. And it kind of ends up being like, let's just say, this isn't the United States, but let's say the shoreline ends up being 1,000 miles. You 50-mile increments. But then you zoom in closer. Let's use 25-mile increments. You're like, oh, well, this bay actually, that we were just doing a straight line of 50. Yeah. It's more like a 25 and a 25, another 25, and they kind of curve around. So suddenly the shoreline is 1,500 or 2,000 miles. And basically the smaller an increment gets, the longer a thing becomes. Right. Like literally in physical reality. Like there's one of the Nordic states has like a million fjords. It might be Iceland. I don't know. Has one of the longest, even though it's a small country, one of the longest shorelines in the world, because it goes in all these tiny little divots and curves. And that basically that's based on this mathematical paradox, which is like the smaller, basically movement should be impossible mathematically. Like the fact that I can go 1 foot, because if you go mathematically, if you divide by 2 and add it together, that should always equal the whole. But if you keep having like a distance, theoretically, you never reach an end. Like you'll keep just making infinitely smaller. And I think that's so fucking mind blowing to think. Like it's a weird paradoxical bug in like the computer system of reality, that like mathematically distance doesn't work out. Like you shouldn't be able to get anywhere, but we just do. And the same thing is then true though emotionally. Like the smaller an increment of honesty or reality or whatever that you deal in, the more impossible it is to ever reach a place. Yeah. And literally in this case with timing, it's like, just tell me 15 minutes, because like 8 or 7.5 2-minute increments is way more than one increment of 15. Yeah. Even though it's exactly the same.
Well, interesting about emotion and honesty and all of that. It's like when you're young, I don't know. I don't want to generalize for everyone, because there's people who are far more involved than I am. But when I was younger, it's like hard. Not that I was ever by any means a liar, but it's hard to be truly honest.
I agree with you.
Just like if someone's like, well, what do you think about this? It's horrible. You know what I mean? Like whatever it is. Like, what, do you like my dress? It's like, I like the green one better. Like, because you're worried about. There's 2 parts of that. Like, there's one, the reaction of the person who might really like the dress. But then there's one second. Yeah, no. But then there's also like the way, like you said, the tone, the way you talk and your honesty combine change the way you actually say something. It's like if someone says, "What do you like? Do you like my new dress? I love my new dress. What do you think about my new dress?" You're like, you're like, it's great. And then like they're like, "Oh, should I wear my new dress?" And you're like, maybe you should wear the green one. Well, what about my new dress? I thought you liked it. So you just said, "I really don't like it." Well, why didn't you tell me that? Yeah. But you were so happy about it. It's like, yeah, but I could have returned it. And now it's past the return date, and you don't like it, and we're together. So why didn't you just tell me that? And then what else are you not telling me that you don't like?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's a two-way thing. One, of course, is like there's this phrase you'll hear it a lot here. Honesty without compassion is aggression, and that there is such a thing. Some people like to go, "What? I'm just being honest. I'm being honest," and that's the same thing as being a grammar Nazi, like saying, like, "I'm an expert. You're breaking the rules of grammar, so I'm not even going to read your sentence that's full of essential divine truth." That like
Cormac McCarthy.
Cormac McCarthy, exactly. Like who he's good enough that he can say, "Oh, fuck you," But like. The same thing than saying like, oh, well, this isn't a fancy restaurant, so I can't even accept this bowl of soup as like, this isn't nice food. It's like, might be the best thing you've ever eaten. But like that thing, how did that come out? Oh, the
honesty,
expert, we get in the way. Honesty without compassion is aggression. That like, yes, honesty. So you're taking the idea of, I'm just being honest. You're taking the idea of honesty, saying a thing that is true for you and your perception, and then saying like, no, you're just being an asshole. You are allowed to omit some things. Some things don't need to be said out loud or felt or expressed because they serve no function but to harm somebody. And that is aggression. An honest answer that has no concern or empathy with where your other person is at.
Right. I guess I just have just think about a lot of this now, just where I am in my life. I think a lot about just direct communication. Yeah. And how easy, and we can talk about therapy even at this point. It might be a good time to talk about being in therapy. It's like when I was younger, I was very cagey in therapy, which is like One, if anyone here is thinking that's listening, I don't want to like mandate or like get on my soapbox, but I will for this because I've been doing it for so long. It's like if anyone here is thinking about going to therapy, do it. First off, I think it's amazing.
Of course.
If you
literally
everybody should be in therapy.
Do it.
Yes. And there are places that will do it on a sliding scale. If you don't make a lot of money, just look for them. You'll find them. They're great.
I would also argue potentially if you find you hate it or you're super uncomfortable, like trying to talk about yourself. Well, sure. Okay. I'll say fine. I'll say this. I was going to say keep going, go more. Going, go.
That's what I was going to say.
Don't be afraid to change therapists.
My point about it is like I had like a drug problem when I was younger, and I didn't talk about it in therapy, and like I could have probably made it less of a problem, in my life if I just talked about it honestly, and was honest about it. And I have things now that I was like embarrassed to talk about my problems with this person that was literally their job was to help me with it.
Right.
But that comes from a maturity, and it comes from like comfort in wanting to help yourself.
Well, that is really fucking... See, so what I think is this becomes the line we must walk, again, between not victim blaming, including yourself, creating space for yourself to experience whatever you're feeling shamelessly, but also self-responsibility. And in the being honest with people and being able to tell them hard things and being clear about the communication, I do think individually it is on us to make ourselves people who don't hurt others for telling us the truth, even if we don't like it.
Yes.
Like it is on us because we have experienced, and it's true and it's real. There are people who make it very hard to tell them the truth. And I think of the Shel Silverstein thing. If you hate to do the dishes and you drop one on the floor, maybe you don't have to do the dishes anymore. If somebody over and over shows me telling them the truth and being honest with them is something they react very fucking poorly to, I'll stop. Not necessarily telling them the truth, but communicating with them. I don't think that there's no excuse really to just start like, well, they always react bad, so now I just lie. But you will maybe stop communicating that much. Mm-hmm. And that I think is something I'm afraid of people doing with me. So I try to do my best to not create a toxic response for somebody telling me something I don't like,
Right.
But also, also seeing that being able to have my own, my sense of truth and reality that I have to ultimately stake my claim on. So if I do hear a truth that I'm like, someone's telling me something they don't like about me, that I am able to just go like, well, is that true? Are you telling me the truth? They're telling me the truth. But going like, I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
But it has to be open, and you have to have the ability to say, do I think that's true? I think that is true. I don't like hearing about myself, but I am kind of a piece of shit in that way. And I'm going to try to be more considerate.
Yeah. No, I completely understand that. But
I mean, because that's the thing you're talking about like telling somebody, oh, I hate that dress, and getting that thing earlier in your life. That becomes the nuance thing of growing up, I guess, of feeling like in that dialogue of telling people the truth, getting better and better at sensing, knowing how to tell people true things that aren't going to feel good in the most effective way, not even gentlest, but kindest ways that truly have a care for the person in mind.
Yeah.
And knowing how to walk that line of telling the truth, of like being like, I don't want to tell the truth in the way that makes the situation worse, but I can't tell a lie in any way because that's just a bad thing to do.
Sure. No, I understand that.
There's layers to this shit.
There's layers to this shit, but it's also like you can't, if you are in therapy and you are investigating things, it's interesting because in my life, I've had 4 different therapists. Six.
Wow.
Different, two couples therapists and 4 individual therapists.
Wow. Yeah.
So I've seen all different types, and like the therapists that
Which also is very important, I think I want to point out, because you're not just taking a pill from a psychiatrist and never checking back in. You're doing work.
No, I have a therapy session at least once a week.
Yeah.
And then I see my psychiatrist I talk to him every week.
Yeah.
And then I see him on the schedule.
My personal experience has been that I'm glad I tried for so long everything I could, nutritional, mental practices, physical practices, and talk therapy before finally being like, let me try. I do wish I'd gotten medication earlier in my life now and been more open to that possibility sooner. Again, starting conservative things. No pill's going to fix your fucking problem. But I think it's important to go through an experience of let's look inside. Let's use the tools that I have with my brain and my hands and my like introspection and a professional who knows how to listen perhaps. And then if you do start medication at any point, not to think that that's a magic pill. That like
it's not a magic pill for me.
You're still
it's interesting because when I started my medication, the whole way that I started being on medication was because I was hospitalized. I went to psych ward.
Yeah.
How
old are you?
18.
Damn.
So I was at college. At the time.
Was it like what's called 5150 or something?
Yeah, 5150. I was at college. I wrote a letter to one of my professors. I wrote him an email telling him how I felt. He sent that to the mental health.
Will you describe what the context was or how you felt?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think there might be people in bad places and maybe are even listening and trying to figure out, maybe they have friends who are who would be the you in that situation. And because one of the things you said, I think I wanted to make space for too, was like, as someone who has put people in hard positions, I think it's important for them to know, like you were saying, like we can't expect other people to complete us, that it's on us to take care of ourselves first and do our best to take responsibility, and no human being will be enough to fix you.
Right.
If you're not working on yourself.
That's something that like I can't apologize enough for putting on that person.
Yeah. Right. But I think it's important for some people to hear, because it's so easy when we love people to stay too long, to go like, well, I need to because they need me to. And if I don't, then they'll, you know, but that makes me I'm abandoning them. I'm abandoning them. I had that with my dad. I have that a lot throughout my life. Yeah. But speaking as somebody who has fucking pushed every button to guilt somebody into, you're good abandoning me kind of thing. Yeah. Man, do I regret that stuff. I'm going to pay for that, you know, in my heart, and trying my best to fix that. I think that's going to be part of my life's work. But like, if you are in a situation with a friend who is, again, not as professionals, but as just going through and putting people,
humans.
You got to know sometimes the most loving thing you can do is really to say like, you got to do some work on yourself, and you're trying to put this on me right now. And that's not a loving thing to do. Right. You know?
So I was,
so you wrote a letter.
I've dealt with like suicidality a lot in my life.
Yeah.
And it was, recently there was some, and you know, that sucked. But
you're here.
I'm here.
You're beating that shit.
Yeah, of course.
Beating that dumbass brain. That helps me sometimes. I gotta say, my brain just tries to kill me sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I literally have to say that to myself. I wake up some mornings and I know, and I'm a certain way, and I say out loud, I'm go, well, hey, that's not real. That's just your brain trying to kill you.
Yeah, I get that. My brain was trying to kill me at that time. And I just said, you know, I feel this incredible darkness and nothing is really worth it. I don't feel inspired. There's no reason to be alive, essentially. Yep. Like, what is the point? Like, the only reason to stay alive is because guilt, because I don't want my mom to cry over my casket, basically. Like, that's why I'm still fucking alive. Well, that's a stupid reason. You know, like...
That's the whole talk going on in your head.
That's what I, like, wrote to the guy.
Yeah. Oh, okay, great. Wow.
Basically, like, I don't exactly...
Yeah, of course.
It was very long.
But this is...
But this was a talk in my head, and this was what was expressed. And that was sent to the... like the mental health part of the college, and I was somewhere, and like these two officers showed up, and they're like, we need to take you somewhere. Not police officers, like safety patrol officers. Like, you got to go to your room, we got to pack a bag, we got to take you.
So you were at college?
Is it? Yeah. We got to take you to the hospital because of what you said to your teacher. So I packed a bag, I brought some books, and then I went in the car, and they brought me to the community hospital. Basically, they did the intake exam. I talked to this doctor, and then they put me in. They took all my stuff, left me with my books, took all my pens because you can't have sharp objects. It left me with a marker, and I was in a psych ward on 5150 hold. Which, if anyone doesn't know what that is, it's a 72-hour hold. You cannot be released if you are there's two. If you're involuntarily committed, which I was involuntarily committed because I did not ask to do it. If you voluntarily commit in California, you can leave whenever you want.
Oh, okay.
I still think about doing it again sometimes.
Really?
Voluntarily. I have.
Even now?
Yeah. Just a lot of times it's for reasons that are not the best. Just like to escape.
Take a fucking breather.
To take a breather. I go to a psych ward to take a breather. Pretty much, guys. That's me.
That's how you get a James Beard nomination before you're 30, baby.
Take a breather in a psych ward. No. But anyway, I was in there, and then so they're basically just trying to keep everyone asleep and quiet, and so they gave me some medication. I had never taken medication before this.
Yeah.
They gave me a bunch of medications.
Smoke a weed or
I
doing
did
drugs at all?
all kinds of drugs.
All kinds of drugs.
Not all. I had done none of the like powders and pills.
No,
before that.
But smoking weed, drinking,
mushrooms, no drinking.
No drinking.
I didn't drink until I was like 22.
Copy that. I don't think I really drank. Yeah, well, I did actually. I lied, but yeah, we'll get to that later. But that's I just context because you're 18, so you're already like finding self medication somehow.
I started smoking pot when I was 15.
Got it.
But I had stopped smoking pot when I went to school.
Okay.
So I hadn't smoked pot, did anything for.
So this is like raw right now. You're raw when you get.
Well, there's probably some come down because I was self medicating so hardcore that summer before, smoking all that weed with my buddies and just like having conversations like this, you know. And then that was all gone, stripped away across the country. I grew up in New York, and this is in California, and
school in California.
Yeah, school in California. I grew up in New York, and so they gave me all kinds of medications. I had horrible reactions to them, and I just was like freaking out one day. And I got up, and there's a red line you can't cross in front of the nurse's station. And I was standing on the edge of the red line. I'm like, "Can I please get out of here? Can I please leave? I would like to leave. I would like to get out of here. I'd like to go."
This is like a day in.
This is the third day.
Third day.
So I was almost out.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Excuse me, sir, you need to like sit down. Please go." I was like, "Oh, so then this is this and that, and like there's all this, and like what if I start pulling my hair out? What if I start eating it? What if I'm a trichotillomaniac, which is where you pull your hair out and eat it? It's a mental condition." And they're like, "Excuse me, sir, you really need to like sit down, or we're gonna have to." So then they call in the fucking police squad people, pull me into one of the little isolation rooms, give me like a full syringe of Ativan. Like shot in the arm. I'm strapped down at this point. And they put me on a 5250, which is a 14-day hold. Involuntary.
14 days?
14 days. So at that point I said, I need to make a phone call. I called my parents. I told them where I was. They flew out the next day. And it's $10,000 to get someone out of the hospital. They didn't pay it. I'll tell you what happened. It's $10,000 to bond someone out of a mental hospital, basically. Or this one was kind of a shitty one. I found out later, so it might have been like some sleight of hand stuff on their part.
Damn.
But she's like, "I have assets. I'll sell whatever we need." My mom. She's like, "Whatever. He just can't be in here anymore."
Is it bad in there?
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It was a dregs. It was like we're like homeless and like meth addicts coming down.
But
like,
that's what's crazy to me is like, I mean, my dad spent some nights in like county jail or something like that. When and I remember that really, I think he ended up in some kind of psyche ward thing too at some point. And I just remember him saying like he never wants to fucking go back there. And it did, change him a little bit for the better.
Yeah.
Because it's crazy to think like they put you there to help you not with a bad brain space, and then like by the third day you're fucking.
I mean, there's like a 16-year-old girl with like a fucking thing all around
like
her
really,
wrist.
Yeah.
There's some meth heads coming down, like going through withdrawal in the bed next to you, screaming all night.
Yeah.
Just screaming, like strapped down, just screaming.
Jesus.
It's hard.
Literally pulling your hair out and eating it by the third day.
No, I said, what if I did that?
You know what I mean? But like that's the thought that like it really is not a healing space.
Yeah. So then a family friend who I ended up living with when I first moved out to LA called his friend whose nephew was a psychiatrist, and he wrote me a release form, and I got out. And I went immediately from the hospital to his office and had my first session, and I was prescribed the first medication I took, which was Zoloft.
And what happened when you started taking medication? Did it change things for you?
I was actually prescribed Zoloft and Lamictal for depression and bipolar disorder, and I just started doing drugs, like hard drugs, and
really?
Like not hard drugs, but like psychedelic drugs, and taking my medication and doing them.
Damn.
And I took like acid and it didn't work because of the medication I was on, which was really weird.
That is really weird.
And I was just smoking tons of weed, doing lots of mushrooms.
I met you a little shortly after that.
A year after that,
you were still raging. I
started raging harder after.
You started raging harder after when you got back to cooking for the first time, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, keep going. Sorry.
So then I self-medicated a lot and medicated with I was diligent in the beginning about my medication. And then
did it help you when you started this stuff?
Definitely. I mean, the therapy and just the like, I always knew there was something wrong with me. I always knew that I always felt like I had bipolar disorder. And like the validation of a diagnosis was a lot for me.
Interesting. Because I avoided a diagnosis for so long. I didn't want, you know?
I understand that.
I understand also why it would be comforting. And like, because there's parts of me that do feel like, yeah, it's helpful to have a name for it. But I was also like, I didn't want to be, you know, even in our culture, we're like, everyone's like mental health, take the stigma out of it. Oh yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's very accepting outward. I think it's still hard for people to turn it inward and go like, well, maybe me. I think I was scared about it for forms and stuff. Like, oh, now am I always going to be somebody who's, now I'm this thing, you know?
I can't buy a gun.
Really?
Oh, well, I can now, but I'm not going to. But
yeah.
If you have a 5150 on your record, you can't buy a gun for 10 years.
Wow, that's interesting.
So
I wonder if that works. The system.
No,
probably not.
But so anyway, I left school after 4 months in total. Before I left, I took a lot of drugs and then I had a manic episode and ended up in the hospital again after breaking my guitar.
Damn.
And ended up in a mental hospital again. And the school basically was like, if you leave, we'll drop all the charges. So I did. Anyway.
Wow. Wait, that's how you ended up leaving?
Well, I mean, leaving school, like...
Music?
Yeah. I had a guitar. I smashed it in the bathroom against the wall because I was like on ecstasy, mushrooms, hadn't slept, wasn't taking my medication, total manic break, like full on hallucination, like losing my shit. Like I fell for this girl.
What did you see in the
like,
hallucination?
All kinds of stuff, like person growing that looked like a tree, and like ghosts in the windows of the buildings, and
wow,
you know, like lights and leopards and all kinds of stuff.
Do you remember those things? Like not like they were real, but are they memories that like you can still see and stuff? That's really interesting to me. I
mean, if you have a real manic break, like non-drug induced, you can have hallucinations.
Wow,
for sure.
Yeah.
I had a lot of auditory hallucinations when I was younger.
Really?
Yeah.
How did that manifest?
My name being called, people talking, people saying, "Hey, do this," and like stuff like that. Yeah.
Do you still get those?
No.
Oh, interesting.
Then when I left school, I came back home, and I went to a new therapist, a psychiatrist who I did not appreciate at all. But one of the tests was, I had a test done by a psychologist who was great. Was like a full mental health, like I don't know what it's called. It's a psychological examination, essentially, where you do the Rorschach test and you do all these tests to see like what's up with you. Take like a test on a computer, like, do you feel animosity towards your father? Do you feel this way? Just someone talking to you, this kind of stuff, like all those kinds of things. And then there's like a spatial relations test that you take, and a linguistic test that you take, and an IQ test, and all that kind of stuff. I did all that, and you know, they tell you what your IQ is and like all that stuff, and like what you
did when you were a kid.
No, when I was 18.
When you were 18. Oh, yeah. Did you find out cool stuff?
I found out that I have a high IQ.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember your number? Do you want to say it?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
All I remember is that it was 25 points lower than what it would be if I wasn't depressed.
Interesting. Yeah, I get that. I do feel that makes sense. Depression makes you feel dumber, huh?
Yeah, it makes you feel real dumb.
That's really funny. But, it's weird because it's like your brain just telling you you're dumb.
Yeah.
Which I feel like you can take out into the wider world. Which again is that thing about disappointment versus meanness. It's like it's saying like if somebody's telling you you're dumb, you're gonna be dumb. Some people know. Some people like love the defiance. They love going like, I'll show you how fucking not dumb I am.
Yeah.
But I think that's honestly, I think it's a much smaller number of people than we think it is.
Yeah.
And that sort of sink or swim bullshit is like no good, I think, for getting the most out of humanity. Anyway.
And then I saw this new therapist, and he changed all my medication, which is just stupid.
Oh.
He put me on like Prozac, which was awful. Because
Gotta be careful with those SSRIs and stuff, huh?
I can't take SSRIs. It would be insane.
That's what Prozac is, right? Yeah.
I took another SSRI and it made me super crazy. Yeah,
this is why this is so crazy, man. This is why I avoided it for years, and I think, you know, it's important to take it slow, be careful, be monitored, be with somebody who's good, because there are bad fucking doctors out there.
This guy was not good.
I think my dad has a real bad doctor, or I did. I don't know. My dad's on tons of stuff, and it still freaks me out. I try not to think about it too much because it's like that stuff's gonna eat his body alive. I mean, huge doses of uppers and downers and mood stabilizers every day, and so I think you still have to be careful. I feel like I generally have a kind of a sort of positive view of medication these days because I'm like, I think I judged it for so long.
Right.
But I want to make really clear every time we're on here that I'm tempering that with like, still takes tons of internal work. You're not fucking fixed. You can overdo it. It can be wrong for you. Like there are tons of things of people taking a new antidepressant and then their depression suddenly becomes like a violent depression.
That's what happened to me with the Prozac. It was like, it's supposed to give me energy because I was tired from the lithium, and it made me like really shaky and crazy and like all these racing thoughts, and I couldn't think and I couldn't sleep, and it was like, well, what if I'm like a fucking pedophile? I'm like, what about this? And like, what about like all this like, really like fucked up stuff? Like, well, and then like
thoughts you hadn't ever like had before in your life.
No, never. Yeah, I'm definitely like. Don't have those thoughts now, and I like it's embarrassing to even think to say that I had
appreciate
that because
you sharing
that's
it.
That's an awful thing
because it's vulnerable. That's scary stuff.
And it's just like, well, what if that happens? And then I was like, well, what if I was like raped when I was a kid and I just don't remember it, and like then it's all going to come back again, and like this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
I know what you mean. I know these kind of strange, because I feel like if you have a high IQ, if you think a lot, you're introspective, you're creatively minded already, blah, blah. I feel like the identity of self is really shaky. Like, and I think you were an actor too. I think there's a reason certain people are attracted to acting, and it has to do with, you know, it can be dangerous a little bit, I think, in a spiritual sense, like a voodoo kind of thing, but also like just in a cultivated sociopathy where you start going like, I mean, I could be anyone. Everybody's just a collection of behaviors and thoughts. That's all they are. And then what they do with those thoughts. And I think if you have a brain that's bad to you and creative and powerful and dark and starts wanting to hurt you, I think it's really easy to just start going like, and if you have people in your life maybe who are mad at you or say things, you start to go like, well, maybe I am. Maybe I could be those things. Maybe I'm worse than those things. And you can invent them, and they start to feel like real. It's the thought of like the difference between me being a murderer or not is like a foot and a half of where the knife goes with my hand when I'm cooking or whatever, you know? And those thoughts are so scary to know that you're like, this threshold. I know, I feel like it's like sometimes thoughts like that are like the feeling you get when you stand on top of a cliff or somewhere very high, and there's something about the great depth, the void in front of you, that feels magnetic, that feels like I should just jump into that. I should just jump down that big fucking cliff, you know? It's weird, like you feel a pull towards that darkness. Anyway, so how did you switch off of that or get to where you are now?
I told him
you
I
just
was feeling. I did. I was like, I'm not taking this shit anymore.
That's good. That's good self-policing.
Well, I felt so insane. I didn't want to feel that way. And that's the thing is like, scary stuff. Yeah, I mean, the medicine, you have to be monitored. You can't just
definitely
go for it.
I mean, okay, so how old are you when that's happening?
18 and a half.
Because what I'm curious now, I mean, I guess, you know, segueing or whatever, because the person I know that you are, I mean, I know all that. I know your darkness. We've talked and stuff like that, and who you are in the world is like, you make the highest like level. Like we're talking like 1% of the universe, you know, you're like the 0.1%, let's be real, of food. Like even if you know what I mean? Like, that's not a blowing smoke thing. That's like when I do jiu-jitsu, right? If you know how to fight a little, if you know how to box a little bit, you can beat up 90% of people just right out the gate.
Sure.
And then the last 9%, it's like very incremental, you know, or exponential. And that final 0.1%, like the difference between the 0.1%, like of the best fighters in the world, and then like 99.8 is also just, you're just in another universe. I feel like that's kind of what it feels like. So I feel like it's not that crazy to say like, sure, they don't do Michelin stars in this country, but just being nominated for James Beard Award, I think is a really nice pedigree. And more important than that, I would say, is just like looking at the food you've made and the reactions people have to it over and over again and what you make. So how do you go from taking this brain as a young person, and you are I jokingly call it frustrating, a frustratingly genius person, where it's like you were in brilliant films right when you were a child, you know, you were like, maybe I'll try guitar, become a classical guitar, like a very, very high level classical guitarist. So when I met you, had long fingernails and were finger picking and all this stuff. And then go like, you know what, food is what resonates with me. I want to go back to food. And now are like, 30 out of 30, fuck, it's crazy. So I guess the question I'm asking is, why food, and how do you go from suicidal ideation to making beautiful meals that bring people fulfillment and joy consistently?
Well, I'll start with the first question, and why food? Well, I always love eating. That's always awesome. I love eating food, and I love cooking. I always cooked growing up, but the reason why I decided on cooking as a career is because there's a daily development. There's a daily practice to it.
Got it.
You know what I mean? There's a daily, like, you walk into the kitchen and you clean your station down and you lay out your cutting board and your knife. There's a ritual to it.
Your mise en place.
Your mise en place, yeah. And you get your containers and you get your prep list and you look through everything and you make sure the orders come in and they are right. And all of that's like slow beginning to the morning. And then you like look around yourself and you start peeling, artichokes or whatever it is that you're going to be doing. And there's a daily practice and a regimen and a discipline to it. Acting, I love acting, but it's so sporadic.
Yeah.
You have a job and it's like awesome, and you meet these people and it's great, and like you have this relationship and like you fuck a hot girl and like it's amazing, and then you never see them again, and then you hate yourself because you don't work for a while, and then it's like, what happened to my life? And then like with music, you're alone in a room, and then you might perform, and you are such an introvert weirdo anyway because you've decided to play a classical instrument that is a single solo performer instrument that if anyone compliments you, just feel like you're insane and you don't want to talk to anyone anyway. So that wasn't something that I enjoyed as much, even though I loved how disciplined you have to be. But at the end of it, like cooking, it had a daily reward, which is the plate that you put out. It's like there's a daily finished product. There's a moment by moment finished product. There's an immediate improvement when you fire that second fish. You can cook it better than the one you did before. Better than the one that's cooking already. You can sear better. You can cut your scallions better. You can do anything better. Every single time you do anything, there's an immediate chance to do it better right afterwards.
That's amazing. Yeah, that makes so much sense. So
it's like I cut one scallion, like circle out of a scallion, like I can cut a thinner one next and a more precise, less crushed one. And as I butcher these fish, like I have 30 over there, like how fast can I do it? How clean? How... all of those, there's all this, and also cooking at a high level has so much neuroticism in it that it works very well for my brain. The cleaning and the time and the, like the mise en place and the direction and the knolling and putting everything in squares and perfect and wiping and cleaning and cutting and all of that. Like that's how my brain works. Yeah. So that kind of thing, sharpening your knife and having it really sharp and even and, like putting things away nicely and lined up and, all of those.
One thing I think is a lot of chefs, all chefs, all kitchens, you got to store stuff in deli cups. With like, usually it's like blue painter's tape and a sharpening marker. You label things with the date. That's the legal thing actually too, because you need to have everything dated. But you have like a rule in your kitchen. You leave scissors next to the tape, and then you're like, everyone has to cut the edges of the scissors. You can't tear the tape off.
It's got to be a clean 90-degree angle.
I'm laughing, but that makes so much sense now. But it's reflected in your. It's interesting because that to me is reflected in your food for sure, but also in what you described about how you react to this problem. Like this, there's no unconscious, like thoughtless. It's
all about intention.
Yeah, your reaction contains.
That's the food
structure and intention.
That's what I love about cooking too, and cooking in a creative high level. Everything has to be intentional. There's no like, oh yeah, let's just put some juniper in that dish because I like juniper. It's like, what's its function? Why is it in there?
Do you ever have a thought though where you're like, I think I should put juniper in this dish, and you can't figure out why,
Of
but it
course.
keeps saying like, I'm put juniper.
That's the creative side of your brain, but
Yeah.
I mean, there's no arbitrary things.
But then that's an interesting thing when that happens, right? Like, does that, because then I feel like there's like those insistent thoughts that don't seem to make sense have their own, like, if you start looking at them too close, you start to figure out why.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can flavor bounce. You can write it all down, and it can work out. Flavor bouncing is basically like if you take like one ingredient, like a white bean,
Yeah.
like a navy bean. Navy bean tastes good with maple syrup.
Yeah.
Yes. Navy bean tastes good with bacon. Bacon tastes good with maple syrup. They all work together.
Right.
All of those things taste good with green onions. You know, that could
Yep.
be a dish that works. Maple, bacon, beans, green onions.
Yes.
You know?
That's so interesting. I love that. That practice is like useful, I think, in a lot of creative
Absolutely.
things. Okay, so that's fucking interesting, because hearing that and people hearing that, you might think like, we all see molecular gastronomy and you see it on plates and you're like, oh, but I don't want to fucking eat it. I want a burrito or something like that.
I
But your
love burritos.
food maintains this like punch in the heart flavor, like flavor bombs, fucking
Flavor bombs.
Guy Fieri, Guy Fieri, fucking Flavor Town shit. So it's interesting to me because it seems reflected, if I may. I'm always fine picking up metaphors without meaning to or trying to draw allegories, but what you describe about your brain and like the feelings it tells you and the realities it gives you, the kind of the storm that's in there internally, and then your conversation with that and structuring it out didn't result just the same way you're structuring an intention with the food and 90 degrees and keeping everything clean and precise and whatever. Doesn't mean that suddenly like the passion's gone, the flavor, the like verve and moxie and electric life at the center of it is still in your food. So how's that work?
Well, you create a stencil, and you know, you can still, you know, the stencil is a practice.
That's so good. Just you saying that is like, you're like, yeah, I'm making the outline of the coloring book. That doesn't mean it has nothing to do with what I decide to do with the colors.
Yeah.
And it's not even like you're even confined because you're,
Right.
you're
writing-
creating
making
the
a coloring
outline.
book. Yeah.
Fuck. That's so good. Do you feel like that's how, like, I don't know, that's what you seem like to me, just person to person. It's like you have a calm intensity. What did Jay Gold say? He's like, in this one review, Jonathan Gold, Pulitzer Prize, really Jonathan Gold, reviewing Boss Thompson. I think he said like, you move around the dining room like with the lithe grace of like a electric guitarist or something.
Metal guitar player.
Metal guitar player. No, but that's true. You do have this intensity and this focus in your movement and your intention and stuff like that. But under it, it's not cold, you know? Sometimes it feels like a little Zen Detachi or something like that in I think an admirable way.
Oh, cool.
But you still feel that. You feel like the passion doesn't go away.
Right.
Do you feel like there's like this stormy, like this well of that humanity that is dark and volatile sometimes, but like bright and explosive? Do you still sense that in you somewhere?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
Like always? Like,
No,
like
I mean,
the Hulk, like it's something you can just access?
Oh, I mean, like the Hulk. I mean, I definitely could just react, and at this point, it's like, it's mostly. I just have worked so hard to be more of that calm person. Mm-hmm. But like, if I wanted to just like light someone up, it would be easy. You know what I mean?
Yes. I think this is important because it's like the core of us doesn't necessarily go away. Whatever our demon might be, or the thing that's beautiful but also dangerous inside of us never really goes away. But you are able, and maybe this gets into the food thing too. Who am I? You can see those guys on the plate. You can see those chefs on the plate. Like, as you get older, that core of fucking maniacal genius inside of all people doesn't have to go away for you to be able to touch it and be in dialogue with it and whatever. I called it the wolf. I had this conversation with the wolf who was inside me too. And it was like, eventually, and he would be very volatile sometimes and cool and powerful and all these great things that I loved, but sometimes like hurtful to me and other people. And I remember having to literally talk to it when I realized like, you're here, my demon that lives in its little cage under my rib cage. I'm like, you're my buddy. Like, not my friend, you're my protector. And that means you're not going to always do things that I like or that are nice to me, but it'll keep me fucking alive in the best way you think.
Right.
But sometimes it's going to drive away other people who don't deserve it, hurt people, make my quality of life worse. Alive, but worse.
Right.
And I had to like, you like end up having a conversation with this thing where sometimes you're like, oh, I really need you right now. You're beautiful, brilliant, dangerous genius is like, I'll come out like flamethrower. I need you.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like as I've gotten older, I've really found a way. Like we talk about the stencil and all of that, and the wolf. It's like I don't sit up at night and just think about food all the time. Like what's going to be the next thing? It's part of the practice. Like at work, I do that. You know what I mean? Like I still have ideas. Like I'll be walking, I'll smell jasmine, be like that'd be great with strawberries and burnt barley. You know, but like at the same time, I'm not like there's a focus and like a linear nature through I'm sure medication, therapy, and self practice of like I'm home now. It's time for me to take care of me and do my thing. And not just be like, well, what's the next dish? I gotta change the menu all the time and like it's like the brain resting makes the artistic brain stronger.
100%.
You know what I mean? It's like you can't just like fucking lift weights all day to get stronger.
There's that thing. Rest. Yeah, dude, that's so hard, and that's harder and harder. There's especially if you like a bingey mentality.
Yeah, I mean with mania, that's total binge too.
Yes. There's that song, you know, and I think it's from the Bible that like there's a season there's like a season to all things.
Yeah.
I think it's like a really profound, difficult concept to like maturely grasp of saying like in this thing of time doesn't exist and we're all on top of each other.
Yeah.
There is an appropriate passage of things, of times, of phases, and saying like this is the time I am in this, and now this is the time I am in this, and in the grasping or wishing to be outside of this or that one, and or the radar that you have or have not developed to detect what time you are in or supposed to be in, the alignment thereof is, I think, one of the difficult conversations to have with ourselves, and one of the different things to accept. And when you can, and finally go like in phases. Now, like it's game time right now. Yeah. It is rest time right now. It is work time right now. It is play time right now. And not so binary either. Yeah. Just saying like, and now this relationship is over. Now this time of my life, there's moments actually I associate with Alumet in those periods of time that I consider to be like halcyon days a little bit, where I'm like, sometimes I miss. They weren't all great. They weren't all bad. They were just beautiful. It was like a beautiful time of a little community, and I miss it. I miss it so hard. Yeah. But it's so. If I tried to live in that nostalgia or be like, let's live like we're then now,
it'll never be the same.
It'll never be the same. It'll never happen. I'll start to destroy that memory.
Yeah, exactly.
And to be able to go like that time is over now, and now I am in this time. It's hard.
It's very easy to want to be somewhere that you hated. You know what I mean? Like. Does that make any sense?
Say one more time.
It's very easy to want to be back to a time that you hated.
Yes.
Like when I was there, I was like miserable, but loved it, but hated it. But I was like,
but we romanticize it.
Exactly.
Do you think that's like a coping mechanism for the pain? Like
that
we remember fondly?
I mean, going back to it, like...
I mean, struggle is beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it was so fucking hard, and we were achieving so much. We weren't busy, but there was so much attention coming to the restaurant, like on the media, like national scale.
Right.
And like in the city itself, and people were like, oh, this and that and whatnot, and it was so hard, and we were just struggling so much, and I was working so much, and I was disregarding so much stuff and not taking care of myself, and like... And I'm like, well, right now, it's like my life is much more balanced and easier now. But I'm like, but I was so creative and the food was so good. And it's like, it probably wasn't
exactly. It probably wasn't.
It's just I was younger.
It probably was, but it also probably wasn't.
Right. It was because it was new, and I had never been able to reach that kind of stuff before.
Right.
And now that it's like you level up. It's like in like an RPG. Like, oh, I barely beat that boss, but if I was like level 72 later in the game, that boss would be a joke.
Exactly.
You know, it's like I like the food that I'm making now, or the way that I run my kitchen now is so much better than I was then when it was just like survival crazy mode every day.
That is a weird thing that we love. That I guess I'd say maybe authentic struggle is beautiful, because when you start to fake struggle and you can realize you're creating conflict environments just so you can relive the glory of overcoming those struggles, then you're in really dangerous territory. That's like very destructive.
But then the other thing, to go back to, like, it's work time, it's play time, it's time for this, it's time for that. There's something that one of my chefs told me. He's like, and this is no new thing, a lot of people in a lot of industries talk about this. It's like, when you walk in the door, you're in the kitchen. until you leave. And then when you walk
Yeah.
out the door, you're in your life again.
Yeah.
It's
Which is crazy.
Don't bring that shit in and don't take that shit home.
Yeah. That's so fucking interesting,
Super,
though.
like, monk.
It's
like,
very monk. It's very fucking samurai shit.
Samurai, yeah.
But, like... It's also a little bit impossible. Well, I would say this. It's when you can dance that line with grace and start bringing in your real self onto the plate, but not in like a way that's...
Not in, like, I had a fight with my wife and I feel like shit and I don't want to talk to you and like, fuck off, dude. Like, I'm dealing with my own thing, okay? Like,
Yes.
I know there's no green onions. I'll fucking get them later. Like, that kind of stuff is
Yeah.
a lot different than like, okay, that was horrible that we had the fight. Like, I will call her at 4 o'clock when we have a family meal and we'll deal with it if I can. And she won't pick up. And okay, if she didn't pick up, I'm just gonna keep moving on. It's not like she didn't pick up. Now what? I want to do this and that.
Yep.
Like, you know.
Well, that's when you got a good bad brain.
Yeah.
Those are those thoughts that
Oh,
go
yeah.
like, come on, we got to do this. We got to work on this right now. We got to fix it. We're gonna fix it right now. We're so smart. We're so good. We're so brave.
Yeah.
We're so kind and loving. We're just gonna fix it. We're gonna fix it right now. Like that's what it does. And then it starts like getting mad at you. Like, come on, let me just fucking fix it. Let me fucking get those tools. Let me get to work on this thing.
Yeah.
Dude, but that's how you take apart the VCR. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how you just go like, I better gonna fix this tape head in this VCR. And then just start unscrew.
I don't know how to put a VCR back together.
Okay, I'll start wrapping us down, which means we're probably gonna talk longer still. So I wanted to do the 6 quick cues that I do with everybody, but before that, there's one thing I wanted to touch on just a little bit, which is emotional eating and
Emotional
the idea
eating.
of emotional eating, and just
I don't do that.
You don't do that?
No.
Really? You don't do that?
No.
What?
Yeah.
Like where you have something and you balm it with food. Food's not a drug for you.
Work is a drug for me.
Fuck, that's interesting. That's weird to me.
Yeah, right.
How? Like, what is? Do you see it in other people? Do you understand
Oh yeah,
it?
I've
Does
seen
it
it.
occur to you?
I've seen someone get upset and then just start like eating chips, you know, or like
Yeah.
fucking like order another round of like French fries or get another sandwich or whatever
Yeah.
it is, you know. Like for me, I mean, eating is.
But there's so much emotion in your food though, too. Like you have an emotional connection to food.
Oh, absolutely.
But is it just? Do you feel like you're just on the other end of that spectrum where your emotions turn into food
I mean,
instead of?
food is a medium for me. It's not a solve, you know.
Fucking, that's interesting.
It's like if I am sad, I probably won't eat.
That's true. I
You know?
feel that. Well, it depends. Depends on what place I'm in.
But I mean, I definitely like I need ice cream right now. I feel like shit.
That's
you
so
know?
interesting. I had a weird. You do eat like a psycho sometimes, though.
Oh, I eat like a psycho on my days off for sure. I eat like 5 meals.
Yeah.
Or like for lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You also like are on record. I feel like, well, in my record of being like top 5 sandwiches in the world. One of them is the extreme sausage.
Jack in the Box. Oh, dude, it is though. It's so good.
I mean, fuck. We should just do another episode about this, but we should. Well, 'cause
Yeah,
I think
we'll
we'll leave
just
this
do
in the mental
another
health one. But I do want to get into like hardcore about like, you know, as fine dining and a little bit more. We touched on it earlier, but just that if you can't enjoy crap, you don't really love a thing.
Oh, definitely.
I think that's probably like a different subject.
Well, like Grand Acres loves Potbellies.
Potbellies is really fucking good.
Yeah, dude,
for the record.
Potbellies is amazing. It's like I know so many chefs that like go smash a fucking buttermilk fried chicken sandwich from any Jack in the Box or wherever.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I had like a ridiculous. The middle of the night, I got so much Del Taco the other night. I was a little high.
Case of chicken roller to start.
Dude, I got 2. Here's what I did. You want to know my fucking order?
Yes, I do.
I felt bad.
Yeah, it makes it's so
next day.
salty.
Dude, I had a Chipotle chicken roller and a ranch chicken roller.
Oh, I didn't know they had flavors. I thought they just had
Yeah.
chicken. Oh, wow.
They got a queso, got Chipotle, they got ranch. Then I ate, and I got, that was for the car ride home.
Oh, of course. You gotta have a car snack.
And a chicken soft taco.
Gotta have a car snack.
Then I had a jumbo shrimp burrito from Del Taco.
Sick.
And a queso burritos, an epic queso burrito. And I ate this all in one
Sitting?
Yeah. Well, sitting, lying, like
Lying
on the guy,
farther
yeah,
down.
passing out, waking up, eating some more, laying down.
No, there's nothing like when you eat a burrito and you fall asleep on the couch and there's that like last quarter and you
Dude.
wake up like 4 hours later, but it's not time to really wake up. And you just eat that. Oh man, I'm like stoned or not, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
That
The
end of
burrito,
burrito is
the burrito butt's
best.
the best fucking part. For
burrito
sure.
butt is the best.
Dude, but I like literally my stomach woke me up in pain several times. I felt horrible the next whole day. I think what my brain does sometimes is because I do crave like real bad for me garbage often. I think I go to a phase and then I just overdo it so hard that it like creates something where I'm like, I don't want to do that again for several months. But I don't know. It's in there, you know?
Yeah. But yeah, I don't.
Maybe it's the demon. The demon's in there. It's hungry. It's like,
demon's
give me that
hungry.
shit.
The wolf is hungry.
The wolf is hungry. All right. Let me get into my 6 quick
Sure.
cues, my conclusion section. We definitely put the time in. Fucking
Cool.
damn. Let me get my questions. Okay. 6 quick cues. All right. First, and this is actually, you kind of answered this a little bit, but maybe more that's on a personal level instead of a work one. Do you have any consistent practices, physical, mental, whatever?
Consistent practices.
Especially a physical one. I'm interested in finding out if people work out and stuff like that.
I do not work out, but
Right.
my consistent
But
physical.
you have a very physical job.
I walk around a lot and move a lot of heavy stuff.
Oh, we're having people come in. Oh, a
hello.
puppy just ran
Oh,
in.
dog just came in.
Hi,
Hello.
Bodie. So literally, my dog, my brothers are walking in the house
Hello.
right now, unplanned. Hi, look at the baby.
So, whoa. Yeah. Hey, guys.
Okay, good boy. All right, hey, we're finishing up recording, so just go in the other room and let me.
Hey.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi.
Good to see you guys. Good to see you. Good to see you. Hi. All right. Okay. Very physical job. That's fine.
My most consistent physical practice is the Wednesday morning farmers market.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I've done that
So-
with you. Nah, the Wednesday one. I've done Sunday more often.
You've
But
been
yeah.
to it with me before, but like I get up in the morning at 5 a.m. and I'm off on Tuesday, so I go to bed early. I get up at 5 a.m. I drive to Santa Monica, which is across town. It's about 14 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Not far, and if there's no traffic, it takes 24 minutes.
Yep.
But door to door. And then I get my dolly and my crates and I go to the market and I pick up all the vegetables and the farmers and lift them and push them back between the restaurant and the farmer's market, which is about 4 blocks.
Yeah. What is that? What do you gain from that? Do you feel like not like gains? I'm
get-
saying like what from the
like,
practice
I
of
definitely
it.
understand. Oh, the practice of like talking to the farmers and learning about what's coming up is always
Yeah.
exciting, and I get excited to see like peas now or artichokes or whatever.
Do you feel like it connects you to the seasons in a
Oh,
like the earth and
absolutely,
stuff?
yeah, for sure. And I mean, it definitely connects me. Physically, I move like it's hard. Like
Yeah.
that dolly is like 200 pounds.
For sure,
sometimes.
yeah.
I'm just like pushing it.
You know, that is so interesting. I've never thought about this, but by going to the farmer's market every day, that is a weird exposure to nature because you're seeing literally the fruits of each season from farmers.
Like
You're like,
the day before.
yeah, very like that's so interesting in an urban setting. I wonder if like that's a way to like hack nature exposure is
Nature
just
hack
visit
here.
your, interact in an intimate way with your farmer's market regularly.
You should anyway because it's not much more expensive than the store and it's much better and it's fresher.
It's insanely better. Plus, you're supporting like legit farmers. It's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. Second quick cue. Something cheesy that actually inspires you. If you have anything like that.
Extreme sausage sandwich? No. Something cheesy that inspires me.
You know, like sometimes like just dumb inspirational quotes or like, just, I don't know. Maybe you don't have anything, but if you can't think of anything, it's okay.
Cheesy that inspires me. Well, the extreme sausage sandwich is pretty cheesy. So.
What about the sandwich inspires you?
Actually, like this is
Because
kinda,
I accept
this is actually it's for what I do for a living, like cooking. Like I actually am inspired by fast food
Yeah.
because it's a compact, craveable bite.
Yeah, that we did
We've
have that
talked
one
about this
experiment one time. We
Got all those-
experiments. It's like an experiential experiment. We bought a bunch of McDonald's stuff,
Yeah.
and then we're like, well, let's eat it. Let's taste it. And the realization you have is like the ketchup is like a burger's a donut. Is like the bun is so sweet.
Yeah.
Ketchup is like syrup. It's like crazy. And things you don't notice. And you start to realize like, this food doesn't even like taste good. It's just made of things that tell my brain it tastes good.
Yeah.
And there's like a subtle difference.
And it's finding ways to utilize the best possible ingredients in the world, some of the best ingredients in the world that we get in California.
Yeah, for sure.
To make delicious, craveable, like crack-like fine dining food.
Yeah.
That's really my goal. Is for it to be like cracky, craveable stuff.
I mean, I think that does maybe set your food apart from other food that people associate with fine dining, and maybe that's one of the little secrets some people don't know, is like that you're putting it in this super fine dining. I mean, like, you brought me dishes and you're like, take a bite of this, and I'll take a bite, and then you'll be like, Little Caesars pepperoni pizza, and I'll go, oh my god, it is Little Caesars pepperoni pizza. You know, I think you did. I think you had a bout of cajou with like some little pork thing, Bob. It's like this lovely little nashi bite.
Nashi bite is a little cornichon and fermented plum jam. It tastes like a McRib.
Yeah, you're like fermented plum jam with cornichon and these bout of cajou sort of buns, and then you take a bite. McRib. Whoa! But I think those are beautiful things to be inspired by, because they also hit on a lot of nostalgia, and you can count on them. There's something about them that like electrically are programmed into our brain, and sort of like secretly hitting on those tasting notes for people is like creates those harmonics again, those sort of life harmonics that resonate with other points in your life that you already know you love.
Right.
Cool. All right. This is my goth question. What's something dark about you?
Something dark about me?
I mean, you did express a lot of darkness very openly on this, and I really appreciate that.
Oh yeah,
I think by showing our darkness, it helps other people let the light in, you know, and also not feel so ashamed of the things about themselves that are dark.
I think, you know, I practice living. I practice living in a way.
That's actually very profound.
Yeah. That came out. So
we're all just practicing living.
I practice living in a way where I try to avoid darkness at this point in my life, and just kind of confront it and pull it out of my life immediately.
Well, that's so funny though. That's literally the opposite of avoiding darkness.
Yeah, I'm going for it.
Yeah, like when you see it, you say, no, don't stay in the dark. Come here, let me see.
Yeah, exactly. So like,
and as a result, you don't cultivate it as much.
I mean, interestingly, because I stopped taking hard drugs, and I recently stopped drinking for a period of time. Like, I say that my darkness is like the unknown of hard drugs for me. Like, the darkness is like, I really want to try them again to see if I can not get into that hole. Like, do I have enough wherewithal and self, motivation and power to avoid just the chemistry of addiction?
Right.
Which is probably not. I just don't know.
No, that is definitely like.
That's pretty dark though.
Yikes. That's definitely like, careful with that one.
I don't want to, but
I know what you mean.
On like a psychological.
Could I do it?
Yeah, like a philosophical manner.
Let me test myself with this thing that might kill me.
Yeah, exactly.
That is a dark voice. I understand too. The risk-seeking voice, the one that's like, let's see if we could do it. All right, getting there.
I won't do it. Don't worry.
What's something? And maybe this is connected to that. What's something you thought was cool when you're younger, but is clearly not cool now at all?
I thought that traditional brigade system that you talked about, where
the French
you
thing?
Yell and you berate people, and like you are, like you're just a dick to your commis or your younger cooks, was like the way to be, and that's how you needed to do it. And I realized that just being like the screaming and the like, I still crave it because I grew up in that kind of a kitchen, and like I feel like it's kind of. Ooh,
it's like rock and roll.
It's like rock.
It's that whole fucking Anthony Bourdain pirate chef nonsense. I remember you saying that one time a while ago. You said like, cooks are the new rock stars, and like we talked about it. We were like, everybody. It was Jimi Hendrix came out, and then everybody wanted to have a Fender Stratocaster, and it was like now it's like, a good cast iron skillet and a good carbon steel knife, and be a fucking rock star chef. But how that's so weird. Yeah. Which, and P.S., this was a thought I had at the very beginning. I just wanted to bring back about the modern interpretation of the chef, of like the Instagram thing. The first thing people do when they get food is pull out their phone. Yeah. I was like, I wonder on some level, though, does that mean at least now they're paying attention to what their food looks like?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
And that matters, like eating with your eyes first kind of a thing.
Oh, yeah, always. I think that's always been the thing, but I think it's like, people like pretty food. Yeah. Pretty food makes restaurants busier.
That's true, but there is this thing that happens now where like people make gram food. I call it where it's like
that one guy that makes the fake food out of like Oreos and shit.
Oh, that's funny. No, like, definitely that, and like the Tiny Chef guy. But I more mean like an actual restaurant that's like, we're gonna hollow out a fucking pig's head, and then we put a soup in it, and you eat the soup with the head,
it's like
and
a bread
soup.
bowl, but it's pig soup.
Yeah, or it'll be like, there's a pound and a half of Nutella inside of this macaroon. Yeah. What? And that
shock jock food.
Not good food, just shock jock food. Yeah. And that, I guess, is a negative aspect of the Anyway, all right, well, that's good. That brigade system answer is lovely. I think that's so important for people to hear and think about, is like, struggle's beautiful, struggle's attractive, like difficulty in fighting and all that stuff. But like, damn, you get older and you're like, what the fuck? That is not a way to live. Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna stop romanticizing it so much. All right, what's the last gorgeous thing you saw?
Wow, that's a good question. The last gorgeous thing I saw. I have a lot.
Yeah, pick one, pick several, whatever you want.
The last gorgeous
sure,
thing I
if you
was
wanna do it
picture
that.
of my friend's daughter playing in a little bucket in their backyard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What about it?
It's just like a child, like so smiley, like like nothing mattered but the water around her in the little bucket.
That's really good. That's really good. I'm gonna leave it at that. That's really good. Do you have a self-care method you'd like to share? Something you like to do? A favorite one or a recent one you're in?
Yeah, my favorite self-care method that I have now is to just think before you speak.
That is fucking brilliant. To
I
think
didn't
of that
invent
as
it.
self-care, though.
Yeah.
As self-care. Like like people tell you, oh, think before you speak because it could hurt other people, blah, blah, blah. But understanding it as like also think before you speak. Like for yourself. Am I going to say something true? Am I going to say something that's going to hurt me in the long run? Am I expressing myself accurately or honestly? Because that's all going to come back around. I got to pay for what I say.
I've gotten quieter as I've gotten older.
My last question is, do you think farts are funny?
Oh yeah, farts are really funny. It was always funny when someone like farts and like whenever they break the fart barrier with you, like as a person or a friend or a coworker.
Yeah.
It's like, do they react or they just try to like pretend it didn't happen? So it's funny.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, very, very final thing. I know I keep going like final thing. I have a thing called the Don't Kill Yourself list, which I started for myself when I was in my late 20s, when I was having a really, this Bodhi, I think is back, the wolf is back. And it started with coffee, lavender soap, and sandwiches, coffee sandwiches and lavender soap. And so it's just things that remind me to stay in this plane of existence and not listen to the bad part of my brain when it tells me bad things, it tries to kill me. And just goes like, hey, there's really wonderful things to be alive for, including coffee sandwiches, lavender soap, and whatever else. I would like you to add something to it.
Well, I'm going to have to say my friends and my family and coffee, because because fucking coffee. But if I were to add something to it, I will say chamomile. Fresh chamomile. Fresh chamomile.
Fresh, not like the tea bags.
No, like chewing on fresh chamomile.
Ooh. Like flowers? Is it flower?
The leaves.
It's leaves. What's it like? I've never even had that.
It's like chamomile and mulberries, things that aren't around for a long time. It's like, remember that they come every year and they will come again. Just don't forget that you just have to wait for them and it'll happen.
I'm going to end that. Let's end on that. That's really good. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you, my wonderful friend.
Thank you, my wonderful friend.
If you want to eat Miles' food, you should go to Michael's in Santa Monica. It can it's not the cheapest place necessarily, but you got that dope bar menu, yeah. Which if you want to try like just tasty bites.
If you want my interpretation of a cheeseburger.
Yeah, dude, it is fucking bomb. I know you put that shit on there begrudgingly, but if you go for that bar menu window, it's in Santa Monica. It's called Michael's.
Yeah.
And just Google Miles Thompson. Miles Cooks on Instagram.
Yep.
All right. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
For listening to my good brand, and we'll talk to you later. Bye. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. That's all right. That's a wrap. We did it. No outros. Maybe some days there'll be outros. I don't know. This outro is thank you very much for listening. Check out patreon.com/mygoodbadbrain. Thank you, Jordan Sudak, Coda, you genius motherfucker, for these theme songs. I love you, and I love all of you listening. Leave me reviews, blah, blah, blah. You know how it works. All right. Have a good day. See you next week. Bye.